Chapter 2168, Black Face Grim Reaper. Chapter 2168. Black-Face Grim Reaper Lu Ming and Xiao Yu were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they were close to the divine spirit fruit tree. Lu Ming stretched out a hand, and with a grab, a huge hand condensed and grabbed one of the holy spirit fruits, putting it away. Then he tried to grab the second one. "You're looking for death," one of the sovereign race's experts shouted, and slashed at Lu Ming with his sword. This was an expert in the great circle of the absolute saint stage. In the eyes of everyone in the divine wilderness continent, this sword was extremely terrifying. It was completely impossible to resist. Even if they were hit by a sliver of the sword's sharpness, they would be crushed to pieces. "That brat is dead," someone sneered. Han Zhong and the other three also shook their heads and sighed. But the next moment, their eyes almost popped out. Lu Ming did not even look at it. He slapped out with his palm and shattered the sword light. Then he grabbed another holy spirit fruit with his palm. Block. He blocked it. No, he didn't block it, but shattered the sword light. Everyone was dumbfounded. Han Zhong and the other three were the same. Not only did Lu Ming block the sword gleam, but he also shattered it with one palm. He looked very relaxed. The sovereign race expert's eyes narrowed, and then a cold killing intent burst forth. Kill! He abandoned his opponent and charged at Lu Ming with the emperor's sword in his hand. The sword's radiance soared into the sky, and he slashed at Lu Ming. "Illusionary spirit," Lu Ming muttered. He took a step in the air and countless runes appeared. Then, these runes turned into a black shadow. It was like a death god holding a death scythe. It was really formed from the array Dao Law's illusionary spirit scroll. The illusionary spirit scroll could create any living being. Lu Ming had used the illusionary spirit scroll to create a death god. The Grim Reaper wielded his scythe and slashed at the monarch race expert. The first slash caused the monarch race expert to retreat and spit out a large mouthful of blood. The second slash caused his head to be separated from his body, and he died a violent death. Gulu. Gulp. The sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. Everyone was really shocked. The scene was deathly silent. An expert in the great circle of the absolute saint stage was invincible in the eyes of the people of the divine wilderness continent. But now, Lu Ming had condensed a death god and killed him in 2 strikes. What kind of combat strength was this? Could this young man be an emperor-to-be? This scene made the people from the other 3 forces of the Yuan continent reveal solemn expressions. After Lu Ming killed one of the monarch race's members, he reached for the 3rd holy spirit fruit. "Everyone, why don't we join forces and kill this man first before we fight for the holy spirit fruit?" An emperor-to-be from the monarch race said. "That's what one was thinking. This person has no respect for anyone and doesn't put us in his eyes at all. He should be killed." One of the divine ox palace's people said indifferently. Very soon, the 3 parties came to an agreement. They stopped fighting, and then suddenly charged toward Lu Ming. "Brat, how dare you kill the people of my monarch race? Die! You dare to pluck the holy spirit fruit. Kill! Kill!" The experts from the sovereign race, divine ox palace, and Manlong palace all charged at Lu Ming, including the emperor-to-be. Their power was terrifying. Even if Lu Ming was an emperor-to-be, he would be blown up in an instant. However, although Lu Ming was an emperor-to-be, he was not an ordinary one. Boom! Lu Ming exploded and struck out with his palm. This palm was like a heavenly blade. Even the space was cut open. One had to know that the current divine wilderness continent was no longer the same as it was in the past. The current space was extremely stable and was not any weaker than the Yuan continent. Even an emperor-to-be couldn't break the space. Everyone's attacks were completely routed. A terrifying power gushed out, and nearly 20 experts were severely injured. Their bodies trembled violently, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. A few of the weaker ones exploded. Illusionary spirit. Then, Lu Ming stretched out his hand and pointed. Countless runes appeared and turned into dozens of death gods. These death gods were not simply condensed from array Dao laws. There were also other laws contained within. Dozens of Grim Reapers charged toward the people from the 3 forces. Blood splattered everywhere, and heads rolled. The people from the 3 forces had been severely injured by Lu Ming with one move. How could they withstand the attack of the death god? They were killed one by one. In just a few breaths, all the experts from the three forces were killed. Not a single one was left. Lu Ming plucked the 9 Holy Spirit fruits one by one. It seems like the legends were wrong. It's impossible for a Holy Spirit fruit to directly create a Saint Realm expert. Lu Ming grabbed the last Holy Spirit fruit and studied it carefully. With Lu Ming's current vision and his understanding of the alchemy Tao laws, he could see the effects of some sacred elixirs very clearly. It was impossible for the Holy Spirit fruit to be like the legends, where one could directly create a Saint Realm expert after consuming it. However, if a person in the 3rd stage of the half-saint realm took it, it could indeed increase the chances of becoming a saint and condensing the saint heart. Speaking of which, it was also a rare fruit. At this moment, everyone was petrified. Some of them rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were dreaming. Many of the experts from the 3 forces of the Yuan continent, including mini Emperor to-be, were killed by Lu Ming. Especially Han Zhong and the other 3, they were extremely shocked. Lu Ming had come with them. The burly man, who had mocked Lu Ming previously, was in a cold sweat and was filled with fear. If Lu Ming wanted to argue with him, he could blow him to death with a breath. Qiu, let's go. Lu Ming smiled and walked over with Qiu. When he passed by Han Zhong and the other 3, he waved his hand, and a wave of energy wrapped around the 4 of them, bringing them away into the sky. The others only reacted after a long while, and immediately burst into an uproar. They guessed that Lu Ming should be an expert from the Yuan continent. Otherwise, he could not be so powerful. However, they did not know Lu Ming's name. Therefore, the name Blackface Grim Reaper spread and shook the entire Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming brought Han Zhong and the other 3 to travel 10,000 miles in an instant. They only stopped after they had left the mountain range. Alright, this place is safe, Lu Ming said indifferently, and then left with Qiu. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Han Zhong and the other 3 were in a daze, and then they sighed. Lu Ming and Qiu headed south. They soon left the northern plains and arrived at the central continent. The central continent was extremely prosperous, with many large cities standing between heaven and earth. This was something that didn't exist in the past. It was obviously built in recent years. Lu Ming and Qiu found a large city and entered it. Lu Ming wanted to find out the specific situation of the Dragon Alliance and how the people in the Dragon Alliance were doing. The best place to gather information was a restaurant. This was a human's characteristic. In a restaurant, one could reveal many secrets by eating and drinking while chatting. Lu Ming and Qiu entered a large restaurant and ordered some food and wine. Lu Ming spread his spiritual sense and listened to the others chatting. A series of voices entered Lu Ming's ears. Not long after, Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He had indeed heard some useful information. Chapter 2169. The Divine Wilderness's New Generation of Elites. Chapter 2169. The Divine Wilderness New Generation of Elites. A series of voices entered Lu Ming's ears. It's really a great era now. The world has changed, precious medicine is everywhere, and strong people have emerged in large numbers. This has allowed my cultivation to break through to the martial royal realm. A white-haired old man sighed, his eyes complicated. Originally, with his talent, he could only break through to the spiritual god realm, and his lifespan was limited. However, when he was about to die, the world changed and all living things were revived. His cultivation also advanced by leaps and bounds, and he even entered the martial royal realm not long ago. His lifespan increased greatly, so how could he not be amazed? The origin chi in this world was rich. Not only did it increase his cultivation speed, but there were also saint fruits that could transform his bloodline and evolve. It was terrifying. However, even though there were only a few of them, there were still many people who obtained them, and their talents increased greatly. Yes, the cultivation environment today is too good. In the past, it would be hard to imagine. Can't you see that even the strong people of the Yuan continent have come to occupy the territory? Speaking of this, there's a big event that's about to start soon. It's about the 3 major powers of the Yuan continent. I heard that the 3 major powers of the Yuan continent will have a showdown in 3 months to redivide the territories. There's such a thing. Many people in the restaurant were shocked. I heard about it from the grapevine. I guess it will be revealed to the public soon. The East Baron is undoubtedly the best place now. Many people are coveting it. Now, it has been occupied by the Divine Ox Palace. The monarch race and the barbaric dragon temple both want to occupy the East Baron. There will definitely be a battle. That's right. However, the three major powers of the Yuan continent seem to be on par with each other in terms of strength. Once the war starts, there will be heavy casualties. No, one heard that the three superpowers will use a special method this time. The three superpowers will each send out their young elites to fight, and they must be elites from the Divine Wilderness continent. The territory will be allocated according to the battle results. There's actually such a thing. It's a battle between the young elites of the Divine Wilderness. It looks like there will be a good show to watch in 3 months. In the restaurant, many people were interested and gathered around the person who knew the news. Being surrounded by people, that person was very pleased and spoke a lot more. That person said that the duel in 3 months would most likely be held at the original headquarters of the Dragon Alliance, the Imperial Dragon City. And now, the Imperial Dragon City was occupied by Sakura. I wonder how's our parents? Are they in Dragon Emperor City? A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He was also worried. Speaking of elites, the Divine Wilderness is now filled with elites, especially the top 10. They are all dragons and phoenixes among themselves, with unfathomable cultivation levels. That's right. I heard that the top 10 heavens favorites have all entered the sect of a Yuan continent expert. How can they not be strong? Especially the number 1 heavens favorite, Ren Qianxing. He's an unparalleled heavens favorite that's rarely seen throughout the ages. His talent is unparalleled, and even Sakura personally accepted him as a disciple. Yes, speaking of Ren Qianxing, he's indeed an amazing person. No one can compare to him today. In my opinion, only the former leader of the Dragon Alliance, Lu Ming, can be compared to Ren Qianxing. Indeed. The crowd continued their discussion. At the end of the discussion, they actually talked about Lu Ming. They had no idea that the person in question was sitting there. A bunch of ignorant people. What do you know? At this moment, a sneer was heard throughout the restaurant. Then, a young man walked out of a private room. This person was thin, and his eyes were long and narrow. When he opened and closed his eyes, a sharp light flashed. Then, young master, what do you think? One of the old men who had been discussing earlier cupped his fists and said, "A bunch of idiots. How dare they talk about the heroes of the world? Who the hell is that Lu Ming? How can he be compared to Ren Qianxing? He's not even fit to carry Ren Qianxing's shoes. Let's not talk about Ren Qianxing. Which of the top 10 Heaven's Pride experts can Lu Ming compare to?" The skinny young man sneered. The other people's faces changed. However, thinking about it, times were different now. What was Lu Ming's cultivation level back then? They hadn't even reached the martial royal realm yet. Now the top 10 talents all had unfathomable cultivation. It was said that many of them had reached the half-saint realm. The difference was too great. The achievements of the paragons today were indeed far above Lu Ming's. If Lu Ming were still here, any one of the top 10 prodigies would be able to suppress him with a flip of their hands. The skinny young man said, "What a big mouth. The Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance is number 1 throughout the ages. How can those so-called geniuses be compared to him? What a joke." At this time a cold voice was heard. "Who's there? Get out here." The skinny young man shouted coldly. Then, footsteps were heard from the stairs of the restaurant, and 2 young men and women walked up. Xiaoshan Xiaorou. Lu Ming's eyes lit up, and he was very surprised. The 2 young men and women were Lu Ming's in-name disciples, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaorou. What a coincidence, he didn't expect to meet her here. After not seeing each other for more than 10 years, the 2 of them had matured a lot. They looked to be in their 20s, and had extraordinary bearings. However, both of them had anger on their faces. They were furious that Lu Ming was humiliated. "Who are you?" the skinny young man asked with a sneer. "Zhuang Xiaoshan, Zhuang Xiaorou." The 2 of them reported their names. "So it's you two, the 2 legendary disciples of Lu Ming. Why? To seek justice for your master? But I'm telling the truth. Your master might have been good in the past, but now he's just average. How can he compare to the 10 prodigies? The skinny young man sneered, his voice filled with mockery. Before the world changed, my master came from an isolated place in the Eastern Barren Territory. He went against the flow and fought against the heroes of the world. In the end, he even defeated all the overlords in the divine wilderness and established the Dragon Alliance. Such a battle record has never been seen before. Who can compare to him? The so-called top 10 heavens favorites now only have some achievements because of the good environment and the guidance of the strong people in the Yuan continent. Compared to my master, they are nothing. Zhuang Xiaoshan shouted. Impudent. The skinny young man shouted, and his body was filled with cold killing intent. Kneel down, slap your own mouth, and take back what you just said. Hehe, I'm just speaking the truth. If my master hadn't left, how could there be any of the 10 proud sons of heaven? Back then, when my master was still around, what was Ren Qianxing? He didn't even have the right to meet my master. Zhuang Xiaoshan sneered. He stood straight and was not afraid of the other party. He really knows how to flatter himself. Today one Li Ku will experience the skills of the disciple of the Dragon Alliance master. The skinny young man's face turned even colder. His killing intent flashed and his aura turned cold, causing the temperature above the restaurant to drop sharply. What? He's Li Ku, one of the top 10 chosen. After the skinny young man reported his name, someone exclaimed. This skinny young man was actually one of the top 10 Heaven's Pride experts. It was no wonder that Lu Ming was so angry when Zhuang Xiaoshan said that the top 10 talents were not as good as him. I heard that Li is a staunch supporter of Ren Qianxing and has a very good relationship with him. Someone else whispered. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Zaira's faces also became serious. Chapter 2170. Wash your neck clean and wait. Chapter 2170. Wash your neck clean and wait. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao both understood that the top 10 talents of the divine wilderness were all very talented. Most importantly, they were disciples of a strong person in the Yuan continent and had cultivated powerful domain techniques. Their combat power was unfathomable, and they were probably no match for them. However, now that it concerned Lu Ming's reputation, they had no choice but to fight. Let's go out and fight. Zhuang Xiaoshan opened his mouth, and then flew out of the window in a flash. Zhuang Xiao was also there. Hehe. Li Ke's eyes flashed with a cold light as he flew out as well. Let's go and take a look. The people in the restaurant also flew out one after another, wanting to watch the show. Qiuyue, let's go out too. Lu Ming said to Qiuyu. Qiuyu nodded, and the two of them flew out of the restaurant. Lu Ming could tell that Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao were not Li Ke's match. Now Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Zaira's cultivation was at LV8 Martial Royal Realm. Compared to back then, he was already many times stronger. Originally, with their talent, it would have been difficult for them to reach this step. But now the world had changed. At the beginning of the world's metamorphosis, before the Yuan continent experts arrived, the Dragon Alliance was the ruler of the divine wilderness continent. They must have obtained many sacred herbs and spiritual roots. As Lu Ming's in-name disciples, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao must have benefited greatly. It was not surprising that their cultivation had reached such a level. However, Li Ku was even more powerful. His cultivation was already at the first stage of the half-saint realm, so he was much stronger than the two of them. In the sky, Zhuang Xiaoshan, Zhuang Xiao, and Li Ku stood opposite each other. The surroundings were filled with people. When many people heard that one of them was Li Ku, one of the top 10 prodigies, and the other was the disciple of Lu Ming, the former leader of the Dragon Alliance, they were immediately interested. You two come at me together. Let's end this quickly. I still want to go and drink. Li Ku said confidently. I'll deal with you alone. Zhuang Xiaoshan stepped forward, and a long spear appeared in his hand. Boom! With a press of the long spear, the earth domain spread out and crushed toward Li Ku. Small tricks. Li Ku sneered. The sword in his hand burst into light and shot up into the sky. Zhuang Zaishan's earth territory was directly split open by Li Ke's sword light. Zhuang Zaishan's figure retreated rapidly, but there was a sword wound on his chest, and blood was flowing out. Zhuang Xiaoshan was injured in one move. Ha ha ha, you're really trash. You can't even block one move. This is Lu Ming's disciple. I can tell from you that Lu Ming isn't much. You guys even bragged about how powerful he is. Li Ke laughed, his voice full of mockery. Don't insult my master. I'm not as talented as my master. Zhuang Xiaoshan shouted, his eyes red. You're still bragging. One said. You two can come at me together. Li Ke looked at Zhuang Xiaoro and said in disdain. Zhuang Xiaoro stepped forward and stood next to Zhuang Xiaoshan. Boom! Boom! The two sides started fighting again. This time, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro fought together. However, they were still no match for him. After a few moves, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro were defeated and retreated while vomiting blood. Ha ha ha, you're really trash. You can't even withstand a single blow. Even if your master were here, he wouldn't be my opponent. Li Ke laughed wildly. Shut up, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro shouted. You've already been defeated, yet you still dare to be so arrogant. I'll completely cripple the two of you today and turn you into true trash. Li Ke's eyes turned cold as he rushed toward Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro. His sword light burst forth with amazing power. I'm going to kill you. Zhuang Xiaoshan roared as he swept his spear out with the force of Mount Tai. Xiaoshan, Xiaoro, your talents are still lacking. In the crowd, Lu Ming shook his head. Then, he took a step forward, and a surge of energy gushed out and silently flowed into Zhuang Xiaoshan's body. Apart from Qiuyu, no one else noticed this. Small tricks break, Li Ke shouted arrogantly, and his sword light burst forth. He wanted to break Zhuang Xiao's spear momentum with one move and cripple Zhuang Xiaoshan. Boom! Suddenly, the power of Zhuang Xiaoshan's spear increased dramatically. The spear light was dazzling and turned into 1,000 meters long, like a mountain range, pressing down on Li Ke. Li Ke's sword light was like a candle flame that was extinguished as soon as it appeared. How is this possible? Ah! Li Ke shouted in disbelief. Then Zhuang Xiao's spear force pressed down, and Li Ke was smashed to the ground like a dead dog. He smashed a big hole in the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Zhuang Xiaoshan himself was stunned. He suddenly felt a surge of power flowing into his body, making his power surge. Someone is helping me. Zhuang Xiaoshan immediately thought of this. Zhuang Xiaoro was also dumbfounded. How did Zhuang Xiaoshan suddenly become so awesome? Around them, the others were also dumbfounded. Just now, Zhuang Xiaoshan was completely suppressed by Li Ke and couldn't fight back. In the blink of an eye, Zhuang Xiaoshan seemed to have become a different person. He completely crushed Li Ke and injured him with one move. What was going on? Boom! How could Zhuang Xiaoshan miss such an opportunity? He took a step forward, and a terrifying force crushed towards Li Ke. Li Ke let out a long cry and used all his strength to resist. However, Zhuang Xiaoshan was now supported by Lu Ming's power. How could he resist him? The powerful force was like an ancient divine mountain pressing down. Li Ke was like a toad. His four limbs were on the ground, and he kept twisting and turning, but it was useless. Under the pressure, he screamed and spat out large mouthfuls of blood. He couldn't be more miserable. Who is it? Who is helping him? My master is a quasi-emperor from the monarch race. Who are you? Tell me your name. Li Ke shouted. He was not stupid. He immediately thought that there must be a master who was helping Zhuang Xiaoshan in the dark. Otherwise, Zhuang Xiaoshan's power could not have suddenly increased. The surrounding spectators also came to a realization. It was likely that someone was helping Zhuang Xiaoshan in secret. Who is it? If you have the ability, then come out. You won't have a good end for going against my monarch race. Li Ke shouted. Hehe, you are from the divine wilderness continent. When did you become a member of the sovereign race? Perhaps you are just a dog of the sovereign race. A faint voice was heard and Lu Ming stepped out. You were the one who attacked. Li Ke glared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming smiled faintly, which was equivalent to a silent agreement. You dare to go against the Di family? The Di family will not let you off. Li Ke roared. Di family, one will go there sooner or later. Ask Di Shirtian to wash his neck and wait. Lu Ming said coldly, his killing intent strong. Many people were shocked. Lu Ming was too arrogant. He told Sakura to wash his neck and wait. What kind of person was Sakura? A martial emperor expert, a peerless expert from the Yuan continent. This dark-skinned youth was too arrogant. Also, 3 months later, the two of them will challenge you in the Imperial Dragon City and defeat you with their own cultivation. So one won't kill you today. Get lost. Let's go. Lu Ming continued. With a thought, a wave of energy spread out. Li Ke screamed, and his body flew out tens of thousands of meters. No one knew where he landed. Chapter 2171. Chapter 2170, Reunion. Chapter 2171. Chapter 2170 Reunion. Many people turned to look at Lu Ming. Lu Ming looked very young, but his abilities were really unfathomable. Previously, he had helped Zhuang Xiaoshan secretly, and was able to crush Li Ke. How strong must his cultivation be? However, his tone was indeed too arrogant. He actually wanted Sakura to wash his neck clean and wait for death. He was really arrogant without limits. Many people secretly shook their heads, thinking that Lu Ming was just spouting nonsense to satisfy his mouth. Many thanks. Senior, please help me. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao came over and thanked Lu Ming. At the same time, they were also very surprised. They had never seen Lu Ming before, and did not know why he helped them. Follow me, Lu Ming said. Then he turned and walked out of the city. Qiuyu followed Lu Ming. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao looked at each other, and then followed Lu Ming obediently. Very quickly, they left the city and came to a remote area. There was no one here. Lu Ming stopped and turned around. It's been many years since we've met. You two little fellows, Lu Ming said with a smile. Now he did not hide his voice, and it returned to his original voice. Upon hearing this voice, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao's bodies trembled violently. Their eyes widened in disbelief. And then, their disbelief turned into endless joy. Master. Master, is it really you? Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao exclaimed in surprise. Lu Ming smiled. His appearance began to change, and he returned to his original appearance. Looking at Lu Ming's appearance, which had not changed much since more than 10 years ago, the two of them trembled even more violently. Master, he's back. The two of them were incoherent, especially Zhuang Xiao, who was so excited that tears kept falling. You're still crying? You're already so old. Lu Ming smiled and shed tears for Zhuang Xiao. After a long time, the siblings' emotions finally stabilized. Master, when did you return? Why didn't you inform us? Zhuang Xiao smiled. I just came back. The moment I came back, one found that the world had changed greatly. I was afraid that you would be controlled by the strong practitioners of the Yuan continent, so one didn't send a message. One wanted to secretly gather information. Lu Ming asked, what's the situation now? Are Xie Luan and the others all right? And my parents? Senior Xie Luan and the others have always been under the control of the monarch race and forced to work for them. On the other hand, Grand Teacher and Grand Teacher are fine. They're just nearby, Zhuang Xiaoshan said. The Great-Grandmaster and Great-Grandmaster he was talking about were Lu Ming's parents. My parents are not far away. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Yes, Grand Teacher and Grand Teacher's cultivation is relatively weak, so the sovereign race didn't pay much attention to them. They left the Imperial Dragon City a long time ago, and they still have time to go in with Senior Emotion. Zhuang Xiao said. Senior Emotion Fatty? Let's go, take me there. Lu Ming said. Immediately, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao took Lu Ming and Qiuyu and flew towards the south. On the way, Qiuyu had also returned to her original appearance. The Zhuang siblings were so surprised that they almost called Qiuyu Master's wife. He only found out about Qiuyu's true identity after that. On the way, Lu Ming asked the siblings about what had happened in the past few years in detail. The siblings shared their thoughts in detail, allowing Lu Ming to understand more about the situation in the Divine Wilderness continent. Not long after, they arrived at a mountain range. This mountain range was majestic and vast. They flew all the way to a valley. In the distance, he could see a few wooden houses in the valley. Great Teacher's wife. From afar, the Zhuang siblings cried out. A figure walked out of the wooden house. From afar, Lu Ming could see his parents. It's Xiaoshan. Xiaoro has returned, Li Ping smiled. However, at the next moment, Li Ping's voice stopped abruptly. She saw Lu Ming and could not look away. At the same time, Lu Yintian also saw Lu Ming. Just like Li Ping, he could not shift his gaze away. Ming'er, it's really you. Ming'er, you're back. Old man, help me take a look. Am I seeing things? I'm seeing Ming'er again. Li Ping mumbled to herself. As she spoke, her tears flowed down. You're not seeing things, Ming'er really is back. Lu Yintian said, his voice trembling slightly. Lu Ming also felt a lump in his throat. It had been more than 10 years since they parted in a hurry. Although the concept of time in the world of martial Dao was different from that of ordinary people, and a closed-door cultivation could last a few years, it had been more than 10 years since he last saw the two elders. They must have missed him a lot. Moreover, Lu Ming was going to the Yuan continent alone. The danger was unknown. It would be strange if they were not worried. Father, mother. Lu Ming took a few steps forward and came before the two elders. Li Ping pulled Lu Ming and sized him up carefully. She was completely speechless and her tears flowed. I say, why are you crying? It's a good thing that Ming'er is back. Why do you keep crying? You're really a woman, Lu Yuntian said. However, tears were also welling up in his eyes. Ming'er, let your friend come in and have seat. As Lu Yuntian spoke, he turned to look at Qiuyu. The moment he saw her, he was stunned. Autumn, Qiuyu. Lu Yuntian was in slight disbelief. Li Ping's gaze also turned to Qiuyu, and she was stunned. Qiuyu, it's really you. You're back too. Li Ping was extremely surprised. Qiuyu's eyes were already filled with tears, and she could not hold it in at this time. She rushed into Li Ping's arms, and her eyes fell as she said, Madam, Master, Qiuyu is back. Qiuyu is back to see you. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. Li Ping caressed Qiuyu's beautiful hair, and was extremely happy. In their hearts, Qiuyu was like their daughter. However, it had been almost 20 years since they last saw her. Now that they had met again, they were naturally excited. After a long time, everyone's emotions finally calmed down. Li Ping held Qiuyu's hand and asked her all sorts of questions. Lu Ming, ha, it's really you. At this moment, two burly figures flew over. Lu Ming took a look and smiled. Who else could it be but Fatty Kong Jin? The other one was the Devil Sky Emperor. Of course, Lu Ming's gaze swept across and realized that the Devil Sky Emperor was no longer an emperor. His cultivation had already reached the lower tier of the Bright Saint realm. Thinking about it, it was true. Back when the original energy was scarce, anyone who could break through to the martial royal realm was definitely the best in terms of talent, wisdom, perseverance, and so on. Moreover, at the beginning of the world's metamorphosis, those martial emperors also had an absolute advantage and could obtain a large amount of resources. Thus, it was not surprising that the demonic sky sovereign had broken through to the saint realm. It was likely that the emperors of that era had all broken through to the saint plane. As for Fatty Kong, his cultivation was different from before. He had reached the third stage of the half-saint realm. However, his body had become even fatter, and he looked like a meat bale. Fatty, Lu Ming said with a smile. Ha. Come give me a hug. The fat man rushed over and crashed into Lu Ming like a body. The fat on his body jiggled like waves. Lu Ming quickly dodged, or he would be suffocated to death. Chapter 2172. Fatty becomes a saint. Chapter 2172. Fatty becomes a saint in the valley. In front of the wooden house, everyone was gathered around a stone table. Fatty took out a large amount of fine wine and delicacies, and everyone ate and talked. Lu Ming understood that the demonic Sky King was used to living in seclusion in the mountains. When he joined the Dragon Alliance, he did not stay in the Imperial Dragon City, but in the mountains. After the world changed, he brought Kong Jin with him and obtained a large number of sacred medicines and mutant fruits. His bloodline evolved, and his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Therefore, when the monarch race arrived, he was not in Dragon Emperor City. Therefore, he was not controlled by the monarch race. As for those with weaker cultivation bases, the monarch race did not care much about them. such as Li Ping and Lu Yuntian. Lu Ming, what's your cultivation realm now? The Devil Sky King looked at Lu Ming. This was because he realized that he could not see through Lu Ming's cultivation level at all. At the same time, he could not see through Qiu Yu's cultivation level at all. He could not help but ask, Emperor-to-be. Lu Ming did not hide anything and spoke frankly. The demonic sky sovereign, Li Ping, Lu Yuntian, and the others were all silent for a moment before they were overjoyed. Lu Ming had actually reached the Emperor-to-be realm. To them, this was unimaginable. That Li Ku actually said that Master is not as good as them. They really don't even deserve to carry Master's shoes. Zhuang Xiaoshan said. Lu Ming, the gap between us is really getting bigger and bigger. Kong Jin's face was bitter, as if he had suffered a great blow. Qiu Yue has already become an emperor. Lu Ming suddenly said. Then, he saw Kong Jin's entire body freeze on the spot. His mouth was wide open, and his small eyes were staring at Qiu Yu. The others were not any better. They looked at Qiu Yu in shock. Qiu Yu had actually become an emperor. This was simply unimaginable. In their eyes, martial sovereigns were supreme beings. However, someone was sitting right beside them. I don't want to live anymore, the fatty wailed. Qiu Yu, did I really become a saint emperor? Li Ping held Qiu Yu's hand in excitement. Now that the world was changing and all living things were recovering, the cultivation level of the divine wilderness continent had increased by several levels. Although Li Ping was born unable to cultivate, she had also reached the spirit ocean tier, by now with the accumulation of countless resources. On the other hand, Lu Yunshan's cultivation base was at the spiritual god realm. Therefore, they had a great understanding of the cultivation realms of martial arts. Naturally, they knew what a martial supreme represented. Qiu Yu's face turned red and she said in a small voice, Although I've become a saint emperor, I'm still far from young master's strength. Sigh, I'm old, I'm really old. The world will belong to you young people in the future. The Devil Sky Sovereign sighed. Everyone drank and chatted, and a few hours quickly passed. In the next few days, Lu Ming would take time to accompany Lu Yuntian and Li Ping and chat with the two elders. A few days later, Lu Ming called for Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaro to come to a nearby mountain peak. I heard that in less than 3 months, there will be a battle between the 3 continents. Xiaoshan, Xiaoro, I've said before that in 3 months, I'll let you defeat Li Ku with your own hands. Are you confident? Lu Ming said. This, Master, Li Ku is at the first stage of the half-saint realm, while we're at the LV8 martial royal realm. It'll be difficult for us to catch up with him in 3 months. Zhuang Xiaoshan whispered. He was still being tactful. His and Zhuang Zai's talents were average. Although they had eaten mutant fruits, and their bloodlines had evolved, they were only at the 7th level of divine level bloodlines. Over the years, they had refined a lot of spiritual and sacred herbs to improve their cultivation to this level. However, it was impossible to defeat Li Ku in 3 months. With me here, do you think you can't catch up with Li Ku? Lu Ming's eyes widened. He took out a jade bottle and threw it to Zhuang Xiaoshan. There are top-grade nirvana elixirs in here. You and Xiaoro can refine them separately. One of them is enough to raise the grade of your bloodline to God grade level 9. Many thanks, Master. The 2 siblings were overjoyed and knelt down before Lu Ming. Naturally, they were overjoyed. Lu Ming had given them a peerless treasure pill. Although there were many mutant fruits in the world now, some of which could evolve one's bloodline, the number of such mutant fruits was too small. And now, Lu Ming had taken out an entire bottle. Lu Ming, do you have any spirit pills that are suitable for me? The fatty was extremely envious. He rubbed his chubby hands and looked at Lu Ming with eager eyes. Back then, his bloodline had been at the 8th level of the divine level. After consuming the mutant fruit, it had already reached the 9th level of the divine level. There was no need for him to increase the level of his bloodline. Fatty, I will let you break through to the martial saint realm in a few days. Lu Ming smiled. To break through to the martial saint realm in a few days? Is that true? Fatty's eyes began to shine. Of course it's true, but it's a little painful. Let's see if you can bear it. Lu Ming smiled. Of course I can. Who am I? Master Kong Jin. The fat man patted his chest, and his fat trembled like water. All right. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the Dian elixir furnace appeared on the ground. He said, let's go in. All? Into the pill furnace? Fatty was dumbfounded. That's right. If you enter, you will be able to break through to the martial saint realm in a few days. Lu Ming said, it's so magical, here I come. The fatty leaped into the furnace, and Lu Ming began to activate the furnace. The alchemy fire spread out and enveloped the fatty's entire body. Then, a shrill scream like a pig being slaughtered came from the furnace. Fatty kept on shouting. Lu Ming continued to put sacred elixirs into the alchemy furnace. There were also 2 sacred spirit fruits. The sacred spirit fruits could increase the success rate of breaking through to the saint realm and make it easier for one to condense a saint heart. Fatty stopped shouting. Focus on absorbing energy and prepare to break through. Lu Ming said. Fatty endured the pain and began to cultivate. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro also ran to the side, swallowed a nirvana elixir each, and began to refine the elixir. 3 days later, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Zyrus bloodlines had successfully evolved under the medicinal power of the nirvana elixir, reaching divine level 9. On his return this time, Lu Ming bought a large number of nirvana pills, all of which were top-notch. Naturally, it would allow their bloodlines to evolve to the peak. Nirvana elixir was an extremely cheap elixir in the Yuan continent. However, in the Divine Wilderness continent, it was a treasure. At the same time, Fatty's cultivation had reached a critical point. Boom! A powerful aura came out of the Da Yin elixir furnace. Then the Fatty rushed out of the elixir furnace and floated in the air, his aura exploding wildly. Ha ha ha, I've broken through. I've finally broken through, I've become a saint. Fatty laughed continuously. He was so excited that he could die. Isn't that number 1 genius Ren Qianxing very arrogant? The next time I see him, I'm going to chop him up with my axe. The Fatty continued to laugh, as if he was invincible. You've become a saint. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro were also shocked. Then he admired Lu Ming even more. After a long while, Fatty calmed down and concealed his aura. Fatty, there's a divine art here that's suitable for your laws. Take it and cultivate. Then Lu Ming threw a jade talisman to the Fatty. Chapter 2173. Chapter 2172. Strength Increase. Chapter 2173. Chapter 2172. Strength Increase. In the Yuan continent, Lu Ming had killed many strong enemies, especially in the ancient Moon Sanctuary, where he had destroyed 5 powerful forces, including the Wind Clan. Each of these forces had been passed down for countless years. They had deep foundations and abundant resources. Lu Ming had obtained a large number of resources: pills, treasures, saint weapons, monarch weapons, skills, and many more. There were all kinds of divine power techniques of various laws. Lu Ming found a divine power technique that was suitable for Fatty and passed it to him. Fatty was overjoyed and received it happily. Then Lu Ming took out an axe. It was a great holy weapon, and he handed it to the Fatty. Fatty was even more ecstatic. Although the world had changed, it was only because of the rich origin qi and the various sacred medicines that made it easier for him to break through. However, there were still very few divine abilities and weapons. After many people's cultivation increased, they did not have a suitable weapon at all. After the Fatty received it, his eyes narrowed with a smile. He happily ran to the side and started cultivating. As for Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro, they were looking at Lu Ming eagerly. There are many sacred elixirs refined in your bodies, but most of the medicinal effects have been deposited in your bodies and have not been refined. This will be a great obstacle to your future cultivation. Enter the pill furnace, and I will help you refine them. At the same time, it will also increase the grade of your spirit bodies. Lu Ming said. The 2 siblings were shocked. Even the level of a spirit body could be increased? Finally, Zhuang Xiaoshan entered the Dian elixir furnace first. Refine. Lu Ming controlled the law of alchemy and used the alchemy fire to temper Zhuang Xiaoshan's physical body. Now that Lu Ming's cultivation level had increased, and he could control the alchemy Dao laws and the Dian elixir furnace, he was more adept at it. The function of the Dian elixir furnace was many times stronger than before. Not long after, the remaining medicinal power in Zhuang Xiashan's body had been completely refined by the alchemy fire. After that, Lu Ming threw sacred elixirs into it and used the medicinal power of the sacred elixirs to refine and upgrade Zhuang Xiashan's spirit body level. This process was extremely painful, but Zhuang Xiaoshan gritted his teeth and endured it. He could feel that his spirit body was constantly improving. He was originally just an ordinary spirit body, but now he was improving at a crazy speed. A day later, his spiritual body had been upgraded to a low-grade earth spiritual body. However, it was not over yet. The improvement continued. After a few days, his spiritual body had been upgraded to a superior earth spiritual body. At this moment, Lu Ming released Zhuang Xiaoshan. One time, not too long, or it would be harmful. My spirit body. Zhuang Xiaoshan sensed carefully and found that the power of his spirit body had increased dramatically, and his combat power was several times stronger than before. Xiaoro, go in. Lu Ming looked at Zhuang Xiaoro. Zhuang Xiaoro also entered the Dian elixir furnace. Lu Ming did the same. A few days later, Zhuang Xiao's spiritual body was elevated to a superior grade earth spiritual body. Then he let Zhuang Xiaoshan in. After more than 20 days, their spiritual bodies had reached the low-tier heaven spiritual body. Lu Ming sighed. After all, the siblings' talents were limited. The low-grade heavenly spiritual body was their limit. It was difficult for them to improve further, unless they had a heaven-defying opportunity. However, their cultivation had not ended yet. This was because the Dian elixir furnace had another wonderful use. Using laws to refine pills. It could also use the laws to temper people, allowing them to comprehend the laws faster. As for Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro, they had not broken through to the martial saint realm yet. They had only comprehended the realm, so it was even easier. In the past, Lu Ming had not been able to use the Dian elixir furnace to its fullest potential. However, now that he had mastered the alchemy Dao laws, he was completely capable of it. Then, he had the two siblings take turns to enter the Dian elixir furnace and channel the power of the laws of heaven and earth into the elixir furnace. The brother and sister's comprehension of the corresponding domain improved by leaps and bounds. Their cultivations had also improved by leaps and bounds. During this period, Lu Ming also let Kong Jin enter the Dian elixir furnace to temper Kong Jin's spirit body and increase the level of his spirit body. Kong Jin's talent was very high. His spiritual body had only reached its limit when it was upgraded to a medium-grade heaven spiritual body. Time flew by, and 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. In the past 3 months, Kong Jin, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and Zhuang Xiao's cultivation had soared. Kong Jin's cultivation level was at the initial bright saint realm, but his spiritual body had reached the mid-tier earth spiritual body. He had also cultivated a divine power technique, so his strength had increased by many times. Zhuang Xiaoro and Zhuang Xiashan's cultivation had risen from LV8 martial royal realm to the peak of the first stage of the half-saint realm. With their inferior celestial spiritual bodies, their combat strength was enough to crush an ordinary second-stage half-saint and even defeat a third-stage half-saint. The three of them were very confident. At this moment, the three forces of the Yuan continent began to fight for territory. During this period of time, the demonic Sky Sovereign had gone out to investigate and had obtained a lot of information. The Sovereign Race, Divine Ox Palace, and Manlong Palace would have a competition after they had divided the territories. And this contest was mainly between the Divine Wilderness continent's native elites. The strongest one could occupy the entire Eastern Barren Territory. The environment in the Eastern Barren Territory was undoubtedly the best. This time, it was in Dragon Emperor City. This news had already spread across the country. Over this period, numerous people were heading for Dragon Emperor City to attend this grand meeting. Lu Ming bade farewell to Li Ping and Lu Yintian. He then led Kong Jin, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and Zhuang Xiaoro on their way to the Imperial Dragon City. With Lu Ming's speed, he arrived at the Imperial Dragon City in no time. The Imperial Dragon City was even more majestic than before. Obviously, The Imperial Dragon City had been expanded in recent years. There was originally a statue of Lu Ming standing in front of the Imperial Dragon City, but it had been removed a long time ago. The people from the sovereign race really deserved to die. They actually took down Master's statue. Zhuang Xiaoshan was furious. Zhuang Xiao and Kong Jin's eyes were also filled with anger. Lu Ming was calm and smiled. This time, he would take back the Imperial Dragon City, and it was time to solve the problem of Sakura. Around the Imperial Dragon City, countless figures flew toward the Imperial Dragon City's gate. Lu Ming's group of 4 followed the crowd and entered the Imperial Dragon City. After they entered the Imperial Dragon City, they found an inn to stay in. The competition between the 3 major forces of the Yuan continent would start tomorrow. The 4 of them waited in the inn. Meanwhile, in a mansion in the depths of the Imperial Dragon City, the words Huafu were written on the gate of the mansion. The people who lived here were Hua Qi and his clansmen. Back then, the Hua family was considered a big family because of Lu Ming. After the world changed, many people in the Hua family rose, and many experts were born. They had a pivotal position in the Dragon Alliance. However, when Sakura came, the Hua family was also controlled by the sovereign family. There were many experts guarding the palace, and they were all from the sovereign race. Right now, a guest had arrived at the palace. It was the #1 genius of the Divine Wilderness continent, Ren Qianxing. Ren Qianxing was the disciple of Sakura. Hua Qi led his men to receive him in the main hall of Huafu. "Young Master Ren, may first know why you've come to my palace?" Hua Qi asked. "Hua Qi, you're asking the obvious." Ren Qianxing spoke indifferently as he fiddled with the jade cup in his hands. Chapter 2174. Chapter 2174, Sakura. Chapter 2174. Chapter 2174. Sakura Qianxing was seated at the head of the main hall of the palace, as he lazily fiddled with the jade cup in his hands. He lifted his head slightly and cast a glance at Hua Qi as he asked, "You all know why I'm here. But I'll say it again. I like Huarou, marry her to me." The expressions of Hua Qi and the other members of the Hua clan changed. Indeed, Ren Qianxing's visit was for Huarou. Huarou was Hua Kai's youngest daughter. She was a famous beauty in the Imperial Dragon City. As for Ren Qianxing, he had always been pursuing Huarou. Originally, with Ren Qianxing's talent and status, he was indeed worthy of Huarou. However, Ren Qianxing was a Casanova by nature. Right now he had already married a wife and 3 concubines. Furthermore, it was said that Ren Qianxing was only interested in novelty. After having fun with the concubines he had married, he didn't care about them anymore, and went off to look for his next target. How could Hua Qi possibly marry his daughter to such a person? Moreover, Ren Qianxing's master was Sakura, who occupied the Imperial Dragon City and controlled the higher-ups of the Dragon Alliance. Based on this point, he would never marry his daughter to Ren Qianxing. Furthermore, Huarou herself was also extremely disgusted with Ren Qianxing. "Young Master Ren, marriage is a major event. It concerns my daughter's lifelong happiness. Rower needs to make her own decision. We won't interfere," Hua Qi said. "Hua Qi, what do you mean? Are you saying that Huarou won't be happy if she follows me?" Ren Qianxing's face turned cold. It would be a wonder if she would be happy. Hua Qi and the other members of the Hua clan all thought the same thing, but they naturally did not say it out loud. "Young Master Ren, you misunderstood me. That's not what one meant. What I meant was that Rower needs to make her own decisions," Hua Qi explained. "What a joke. Since ancient times, it has always been the parents' orders and the matchmaker's words. As long as you give the order, how would Huarou dare to disobey? She still has to marry me obediently." Ren Qianxing's expression turned even colder as he continued, "Hua Qi, don't give me so many excuses. With my status, I will definitely rule the Divine Wilderness in the future. One might even head to the Yuan continent and become an overlord. For me to be interested in your daughter is her good fortune. It is her good fortune that she has cultivated for several lifetimes. Do you understand? Who do you think you are? You really know how to put gold on your face. If people like you go to the Yuan continent, you will probably be slapped to death." At this moment a voice came from outside the hall. Then a young and beautiful woman walked in. The woman was about 28 years old, and was in the prime of her life. She was a country-toppling beauty. She was Huakai's youngest daughter, Huaro. Huaro, what did you say? Do you know how much trouble you will bring to the Hua family? Ren Qianxing spoke in a sinister tone. His sinister gaze roamed all over Huaron's curvaceous body, as an evil glint flashed past his eyes. What's wrong? Are you going to use your master to pressure us again? Huaro was extremely stubborn and fearless. Why would I need to take my master? I, Ren Qianxing, have talent that has never been seen before. If I were to say who I want to marry, the number of women who want to marry me can line up from the northern city gates all the way to the southern city gates. Do you understand? It's your good fortune that I'm interested in you. Do you understand? Ren Qianxing replied, filled with confidence. This is unprecedented. You really know how to flatter yourself. In my heart, only my uncle Lu Ming is the true unprecedented. Who are you? Huaro said. Lu Ming? If he appears, 111 kill him with a slap. Ren Qianxing scoffed. After which he turned to Huaqi and continued. Huaqi, are you going to agree or not? Since Roer doesn't agree, please forgive me for not being able to agree. Huaqi said firmly. Good, very good. In that case, 111 get first place in tomorrow's competition. At that time, I'll ask my master to arrange a marriage for me. You have to agree even if you don't want to. Ren Qianxing ruthlessly spat out these words before flicking his sleeves and leaving. The expressions of Huaqi, Huaro, and the others changed. If Di Shirtian personally bestowed the marriage, what would they do? If they refused Sakura, the Hua family would probably be exterminated. This despicable man, Huaro said hatefully, her tears flowing uncontrollably. Roa, don't worry. Even if I die, I won't let you marry him. Huaqi said through gritted teeth. The entire Hua family was filled with worry. Time flew and a day passed. The next morning, Lu Ming and the other three headed towards the center of the Imperial Dragon City. There was a huge square in the center of Imperial Dragon City, which had been crowded with people. Around the square, some banquets had already been prepared. Of course, only those with status could sit. Ordinary people were not qualified at all. The Di family is here. Someone suddenly called out. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, many rainbow lights were flying over from the depth of Imperial Dragon City. The person in the lead was dressed in an emperor's robe. He looked to be in his 40s, and had a jade crown on his head. He looked like an ancient emperor that had come back to life, filled with boundless majesty. Sakura. Lu Ming did not need to think to know that this person was Sakura. There were some people following besides Sakura. A few of them were unusually burly. They were covered in heavy iron armor, and were shrouded in black light. The evil god race. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. These people were all from the evil god tribe. Moreover, one of them had even reached the martial emperor realm. A few young men followed by the side. That is Ren Qianxing, the #1 genius of the divine wilderness. Ren Qianxing's talent is truly shocking. Some people say that he's even more talented than Lu Ming in the past. He's the #1 genius in history. Not necessarily. The surrounding crowd of people discussed animatedly. Zhuang Xiao and Zhuang Xiaoshan were indignant. Bright Saint Realm. Lu Ming's gaze shifted to one of the youths. This person's cultivation had reached the initial Bright Saint Realm. He should be Ren Qianxing. Beside Ren Qianxing, there was a young man. It was Li Ku. Sakura and the others landed on the highest seats and sat down. Whoosh! At this moment, the roars of bulls shook the sky. In the distance, a group of divine bulls the size of mountains stepped through the air, causing the sky to rumble. As they approached, these divine bulls all turned into burly men. The people from the Divine Ox Palace had arrived. The people from the Divine Ox Palace also brought a few young men and landed on the east seats. Immediately after, the roars of beasts rang out. A few chariots flew over as the beasts pulled the carriages. The people from the Manlong Palace had arrived. Manlong Dragon Hall also brought a few young men. The three major forces of the Yuan continent had all arrived. The leaders of the three forces looked at each other in the air, and a terrifying aura spread out. An invisible pressure filled the air. Everyone present felt as if they were facing several ancient universes. The suffocating pressure almost made them kneel down. A wisp of aura emanated from Lu Ming's body and enveloped Fatty, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and Zhuang Xiaoro. The pressure on them was lifted, and they heaved a sigh of relief. Third-level martial emperor? Lu Ming muttered. The leaders of the three forces stood in a stalemate. Their auras were exuding. Others could not tell their cultivation levels, but Lu Ming could. Lu Ming had seen many martial emperor powerhouses. Based on their auras, Lu Ming could tell that the cultivation of the leaders of the three major forces was at the third-level martial emperor realm. Chapter 2175. Chapter 2174. Victory decided. Chapter 2175. Chapter 2174. Victory decided. Sacre D, the master of the Divine Bull Palace, and the master of the Manlong Hall stood in a confrontation. Their auras spread out, revealing their level 3 martial emperor cultivation. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. He was not bothered by the third-level martial emperor. You two want to take over the East Continent? No way. The master of the Divine Ox Palace was a purple-haired middle-aged man. He sneered. The Divine Ox Palace was the first power of the Yuan continent to arrive in the East Baron. Therefore, it occupied the place with the densest original qi in the East Baron. The sovereign family and the Manlong Temple had always wanted to take over the East Baron, but they had never succeeded. This time, the sovereign race and the Manlong Palace had joined forces to pressure the Divine Ox Palace. That was why they had said that they would fight today. Where did the Divine Ox Palace and the Barbaric Dragon Palace come from? Lu Ming furrowed his brows in deep thought. These two factions definitely did not come from the Azure Continent. They came to the Divine Wilderness through other means. You'll know once you compete. At that time, don't go back on your word. Divine Ox Palace. Sacre gave a faint smile. How can my Divine Ox Palace be shameless? Tell me, how do you want to compete this time? The master of Divine Ox Palace said. How are we going to compete? We have already agreed on this a long time ago. There is no need for us to fight. Both sides will send out their local elites to fight. How about this? Each side will send out 3 elites, and have a team battle, and an individual battle. We will rank them according to their battle results. How about it? Sacre said. Alright, it's decided then. I agree. The master of the Divine Ox Palace and the Manlong Palace master both nodded in agreement. Not long after, a fighting stage rose in the middle of the square. 3 young men from each of the 3 forces rushed into the arena. Ren Qianxing, Ren Qianxing, Ren Qianxing. Naturally, the sovereign race sent out Ren Qianxing. The moment he stepped onto the stage, many people, including a few ignorant young ladies, started shouting. Ren Qianxing indeed had the looks of a dog and a graceful demeanor. Many ignorant young ladies didn't even know how to differentiate between good and evil, and brainlessly treated Ren Qianxing as their idol. Ren Qianxing stood with his hands behind his back, exuding the air of a peerless expert. Nest, he's really acting tough. I can't wait to step on his face. Kong Jin said unhappily. You'll have a chance. Lu Ming smiled. I'm just unhappy with those brainless young ladies. Ren Qianxing has everything he wants. How can he compare to me? Those ladies really have no taste. Kong Jin pursed his lips. Lu Ming was speechless. Brother Ox, how about we join forces? That Ren Qianxing is not easy to deal with. The master of Manlong Hall secretly sent a message to the master of Divine Ox Palace. The master of Divine Ox Palace's eyes flashed and he said, All right, let's join forces and defeat the monarch race first. Then we'll see who's stronger. All right, that's what one meant. The Manlong Dragon Hall master nodded. After that, the master of Manlong Hall and Divine Ox Palace sent messages to their respective heavens favorites. At this moment on the fighting ring, the paragons of the 3 sides were facing each other. Many people were watching nervously. From the discussions of the surrounding people, he knew that the 9 youths on the battle stage were 9 of the top 10 elites of the Divine Wilderness continent. Every single one of them had extremely high cultivation levels. Over at the sovereign race's side, Ren Qianxing and Li Ku were both present. At this moment, The heaven's favorites from the divine ox palace and the savage dragon palace looked at each other and suddenly moved. The 6 young men from both sides charged at the sovereign race genius from 2 different directions. Damn it, they want to join forces to deal with us first. Li Ku roared. You guys are despicable. Another sovereign race heaven's favorite roared. However, the heaven's favorites from both sides were extremely fast. They approached in an instant and attacked. Li Ku and the other heaven's favorite roared and charged forward. However, Ren Qianxing continued to stand with his hands behind his back, not moving an inch. Boom! Boom! With 2 loud bangs, how could Li Ku and the other young man stop each other? They were knocked back and blood flowed out of their mouths. The 6 youths from the Divine Ox Palace and Savage Dragon Palace had Ren Qianxing surrounded. Ren Qianxing, you guys should just admit defeat. One of the heaven's favorites from the Divine Ox Palace said. He was ranked 2nd among the top 10 heaven's favorites, and had the cultivation of the 3rd stage of half-saint. Admit defeat? How laughable, you think trash like you can defeat me. Ren Qianxing indifferently replied. You're boasting shamelessly. Then I'll make you get out of here now. The chosen roared, and the 6 of them exploded with powerful auras. They were all half-saints, and the weakest one was at the 2nd stage of half-saint. Boom! However, at this moment, a fearsome aura burst forth from Ren Qianxing's body. A vast amount of saintly might permeated the entire area. At this moment, Ren Qianxing's bright saint stage cultivation was fully revealed. Sage Realm. You've broken through to the Sage Realm. You've actually broken through to the Sage Realm. The 6 heaven's favorites from the 2 forces shouted in disbelief. This guy has actually broken through to the Sage Realm. Zhuang Xiao and Zhuang Xiao were also surprised. The Saint Realm was a barrier that was very difficult to cross. For example, the fatty was empty. Without Lu Ming's help, he would have needed a long time to cross. At this moment, the crowd in the surroundings was in an uproar. They were all shocked by Ren Qianxing's cultivation base. Those ignorant girls were even shouting and screaming in excitement. Now you're the ones who have lost. Ren Qianxing let out a long howl as streaks of sword light burst forth from his hands. His master was Sakura, so he naturally also cultivated divine arts, which were extremely powerful. Bang! Bang! The heaven's favorites from the 2 forces were unable to fight back. They were sent flying by the sword light. They fell to the ground and spat out blood. A half-saint was no match for a saint. The paragons of the 2 forces were defeated in an instant. There was no longer any suspense in the competition. Damn it! The master of Divine Ox Palace roared in anger, his face gloomy. The entire arena was in an uproar as countless people were cheering for Ren Qianxing. Amazing, this is really amazing. Ren Qianxing has already reached the Sage Realm at such a young age. This is simply heaven-defying. That's right. As expected of the number 1 genius in the divine wilderness. It's rare since ancient times. Someone actually placed Lu Ming and Ren Qianxing on the same level. In my opinion, Lu Ming and Ren Qianxing can't be compared at all. They're not on the same level at all. Lu Ming is far inferior. Not bad, not bad. The sounds of discussion rang out all around the square. Damn it, what do these people know? How do you know how powerful Shizhuan is? That's right, a bunch of foolish people. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao were very unhappy. These people actually said that Lu Ming was far inferior to Ren Qianxing. It was simply ridiculous. They knew how powerful Lu Ming was. In just 3 short months, he was able to make their abilities soar. He was many times stronger than Ren Qianxing. Lu Ming smiled faintly and did not mind. With his current cultivation level, why would he care about the discussions of these people? Many people sighed. They reckoned that there was no longer any suspense in this competition. The sovereign race would definitely win. Sakura Asia was all smiles. In order to help Ren Qianxing break through to the Sage Realm, he had paid a huge price. However, everything was worth it. The cultivation environment in the East Baron was too good. As long as he could occupy the East Baron, he planned to move the entire D family here and make this place his base camp. Then his D family would certainly grow stronger and stronger. In the future, it wasn't impossible for them to compete with the powerful forces of the Sacred Lands. Chapter 2176. Chapter 2176, Insufferable. Chapter 2176. Chapter 2176 Insufferable. As expected, the following individual battles became even more of a show for Ren Qianxing. He swept through all the opponents, and no one was able to withstand a single move from him. Without any exception, he got first place. Li Ku, on the other hand, was in 8th place. Although the other two members of the monarch race didn't do well, with Ren Qianxing's ranking, the monarch race was still in first place and would obtain the rights to the East Baron. The entire monarch race laughed so hard that their teeth fell off. As for those from the Divine Ox Palace and the Savage Dragon Palace, their faces were gloomy, and this battle had pushed Ren Qianxing's reputation to the peak. Many people even described Ren Qianxing as an unprecedented prodigy in the divine wilderness. What Lu Ming? He wasn't even fit to carry Ren Qianxing's shoes. Zhuang Xiaoshan and the others gritted their teeth. Ren Qianxing stood on the battle stage with his hands behind his back, enjoying the envious gazes of many. He had a proud smile on his face. He was enjoying it very much, and his whole person was floating. He had a feeling of invincibility since ancient times. After a long time, he gathered his thoughts and cupped his fists to Sakura. Master, disciple has a favor to ask of you today. I hope you can help me. Haha, Qianxing, you've won first place today. If you have any conditions, feel free to state them. Treat it as a reward from your master. Sakura Azia laughed. Thank you, master. One would like to ask you to betroth Hua Rou, the daughter of Hua Qi, to me. Ren Qianxing replied. Hua Qi. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Ren Qianxing actually wanted to marry the daughter of Hua Qi. It had been more than 10 years since he left the divine wilderness. Before he left, Hua Qi already had a few children. Lu Ming had some impression of Hua Qi. He remembered that he had a daughter named Hua Rou. Could it be that Hua Rou and Ren Qianxing were in love? Lu Ming frowned. He was about to take action, but he held himself back at this moment. He wanted to see what was going on. 1C. It's simple. 111 call Hua Qi and the others, as well as the people from the Dragon Alliance, to prepare to move to the East Continent with me. Sakura nodded, and then asked someone to pass the news. Not long after, a group of people flew over. Hua Qi, Xiaowan, Senior Zhuyang, Big Brother Yan. Lu Ming saw a familiar face in the crowd. Hua Qi, Xiaowan, Xia Zhuyang, Yan Kuangtu, and the others were all high-level members of the Dragon League. Of course, Hua Kai's daughter Hua Rou was also there. Hua Kai's expression was slightly ugly. He had a bad premonition. The moment he saw that Ren Qianxing had already broken through to the Saint Plane and was even ranked first, his heart sank. Hua Qi, today, Qianxing told me that he is interested in your daughter Hua Rou. This seat will bestow your daughter Hua Rou to Qianxing. Today we will have a grand wedding. This can be considered as double happiness. What do you think? Sakura asked with a smile. No, I won't agree. A clear voice rang out. It was Hua Rou. Hua Kai's expression was also ugly. Lord Marshal Sovereign, my daughter, Hua Rou is still young. She doesn't want to get married yet. I hope Lord Marshal Sovereign can retract your order. What's the meaning of this? Ren Qianxing's expression was extremely gloomy as he stared at Hua Qi and Hua Rou. I, Ren Qianxing, am the #1 talent since ancient times. Don't tell me that I'm not worthy of Hua Rou. Don't be ignorant of your own good fortune. #1 in talent since ancient times. He's really shameless. Hua Rou threw caution to the wind and directly berated him. Sakura's face also darkened, and he said, One didn't call you here to ask for your opinions. I'm just informing you that no one can refuse my request. You should prepare for the wedding. Hua Qi Huaran's face was pale. On the other hand, Ren Qianxing had a smug look on his face. Lord Marshal Emperor, marriage is a major event. It's about mutual love. I'm afraid it's not good to force a marriage like this. Xiaowan stepped forward and cupped his fists. That's right. Lord Marshal Emperor, please retract your order. Then Xia Zhuyang, Yan Kuangtu, and the others also stepped out and spoke. Who do you think you are? Since my master has already spoken, there's no reason to take it back. Do you want to disobey? Ren Qianxing berated. All around, everyone just looked on, and no one said a word. Xiaowan, Xia Zhuyang, Yan Kuangtu, Hua Qi. and the others all had unsightly expressions. Unfortunately, the sovereign race was too strong. If they resisted, they would probably be crushed to death by Sakura with a single palm. There was no hope at all. No, I want Mary. I want Mary even if I die. Poirot cried out in an extremely stubborn manner. You have to get married even if you don't want to. If you die, your family will be buried with you. Have you thought it through? Ren Qianxing transmitted his voice over to Poirot, his tone ice cold. Poirot's delicate body trembled. A look of despair flashed across her face as tears began to flow down her face. Fatty Xiaoshan Xiaoro, it's your turn. At this moment, Lu Ming told the fatty and the rest. Haha, it's finally time to go on stage. I can't hold it in anymore. The fat man laughed and rushed out with his battle axe. Zhuang Xiaoshan, Zhuang Xiaoro and Fatty also rushed out. Ren Qianxing, who do you think you are? How can you match up to a national beauty like Poirot? Why don't you take a look at your reflection in your urine? A loud roar reverberated throughout the entire area. Ren Qianxing's face instantly turned dark as he howled. Who's there? Get out here. Your grandfather. Fatty carried the battle axe and walked out. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro were beside him. Hua Qi, Poirot Xiaowan, and the others also saw Fatty and Zhuang Xiaoshan. Fatty Xiaoshan Xiaoro, why are you here? This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and leave. Hua Qi shouted. Today's matter was a little complicated. He didn't want to drag Fatty and the others into this. Haha, it's fine. We're here today to give this sissy a good beating. Well, leave after we're done. Fatty hefted his battle axe as he cast a disdainful glance at Ren Qianxing. You guys, you're looking for death. Ren Qianxing gritted his teeth as he spat out those words in an incomparably sinister manner. Looking for death? You don't have the right. Also, you don't have the right to marry Niece Poirot. Fatty lazily replied. Ha ha ha, what a joke. I'm not qualified. Who in the world is qualified? My talent has been unparalleled since ancient times. Who can compare to me? Ren Qianxing laughed uproariously. What a joke. He's just a piece of trash. Yet he dares to say that his talent is unparalleled? The fatty was disdainful. What did you just say? Ren Qianxing's face was incomparably gloomy, as his eyes were filled with sinister killing intent. Ever since he entered Sakura's sect, his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he was pursued by countless people. Many people called his talent unparalleled since ancient times. Now Fatty actually called him trash. Immediately, he had already sentenced Fatty to death in his heart. It was unforgivable to call him trash. Are you deaf? I said you're trash. Unless you can defeat me. Only then will you be worthy of Poirot. Do you understand? Fatty said indifferently. These words made many people speechless. This Fatty wanted to challenge Ren Qianxing? Who is this Fatty? Why is he so arrogant? One recognize him. He seems to be Lu Ming's friend from back then. He's not even 50 years old. He's considered to be in the younger generation. Lu Ming's friend? I've never heard of it. Chapter 2177. Chapter 2176, Disciples' Might. Chapter 2177. Chapter 2176 Disciples' Might. The square was abuzz with discussion. Hua Qi, Xia Juyang, and the others had ugly expressions and were puzzled. They didn't understand what Fatty and the others were doing here. Provoking Ren Qianxing in such a way would not bring them any benefits. Instead, they would only drag themselves into this mess. Not only that, Fatty actually challenged Ren Qianxing. This simply wouldn't work. He was definitely not a match for Ren Qianxing. They knew Fatty's cultivation. He had not become a saint yet. Furthermore, even if Fatty were to become a sage, he wouldn't be a match for Ren Qianxing. Ren Qianxing had taken Di Shirtian as his master, and was able to cultivate a sacred art. In the divine wilderness, there was no such thing as sacred art. If they were at the same cultivation level, they would definitely not be a match for Ren Qianxing. Fatty Xiaoshan Xiaoro, you guys should run. Hua Qi roared. Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro were Lu Ming's disciples. If something happened to them because of him, how could he answer to Lu Ming? Let's go. None of them will leave today. Ren Qianxing's voice was ice cold as killing intent flickered in his eyes. A powerful aura emanated from his body. The fatty actually dared to provoke him like this. He had to kill the fatty today, and let everyone know that his dignity was not to be offended. It's fine. I'll leave after I beat this guy up, and let the world know that he's a piece of trash. Fatty grinned at Hua Qi previously. Lu Ming had told him that he just had to make a move, and that there was no need to worry about Sakura and the other powerhouses. Therefore, Fatty was not afraid at all. Hua Qi, Xia Zhuyang, and the others were dumbfounded. He did not understand why Fatty, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and Zhuang Xiaoro were so confident today. Was he crazy? Even the spectators around them thought that Fatty and the others had gone crazy. They were definitely going to die today. You're looking for death. Ren Qianxing took a step forward, his killing intent growing even more intense. Young Master Ren, there's no need for you to deal with these pieces of trash personally. Wouldn't you be dirtying your hands? This younger brother can do it on your behalf. At this moment, Li Ke stepped out and took the opportunity to suck up to Ren Qianxing. This act of flattery made Ren Qianxing feel extremely comfortable. He nodded his head and replied, "That's good. A few clowns are indeed not worth my time. You can do it on my behalf. Cripple them first. I want them to regret it." "Don't worry, young Master Ren." Li Ke nodded and bowed, then stepped toward the fatty and the others, bursting with cold killing intent. "Li Ke 111 fight you." Zhuang Xiaoshan stepped forward to meet Li Ke. "Zhuang Xiaoshan, you piece of trash, you still dare to fight me? 3 months ago, you couldn't even withstand one of my moves. You're really courting death. Fine. I'll let everyone know today that Lu Ming's disciple is a piece of trash. And so is he. He's just boasting." Li Ke sneered. His words made many people's faces turn ugly. There were many people here who were from the Dragon Alliance back then. Many of them had witnessed Lu Ming's heaven-defying rise and his dominance over an era. But now Li Ke said that Lu Ming was trash. Did that not mean that they were trash too? "How dare you insult my master? 111 kill you today." Zhuang Xiaoshan was furious. His eyes were full of killing intent. A long spear appeared in his hand, and a powerful aura burst out. The first stage of half-saint. "You, how did your cultivation level increase so quickly?" Li Ke screamed in disbelief. 3 months ago, Zhuang Xiaoshan's cultivation had only been at LV8 Martial Royal Realm. How could he have broken through several levels and entered the first stage of the half-saint in just 3 months? In the past 3 months, with the help of the monarch race, he had only broken through 1 level of cultivation and reached the second stage of half-saint. Zhuang Xiaoshan's improvement was even greater than his. However, he quickly reacted. A ferocious look flashed in his eyes as he shouted, "You must have had some fortuitous encounter or obtained some powerful sacred medicine. But so what? You've relied on the powerful medicinal effects to raise your cultivation, but you're still so weak. One can defeat you in 1 move." So what if Zhuang Xiaoshan had reached the first stage of half-saint? He was now at the second stage of the half-saint realm. His master was an emperor-to-be from the sovereign race, who had taught him the domain martial technique. He was confident that he could defeat Zhuang Xiaoshan with 1 move. Boom! A powerful aura also burst out from Li Ke's body. At the same time, a combat sword appeared in his hand. The sword light burst out, carrying the power of law, and he attacked Zhuang Xiaoshan. In the Divine Wilderness continent, any other first-stage half-saint who had not cultivated any domain techniques would not be able to take a single blow from him. However, although Zhuang Xiaoshan had not had time to practice his domain martial technique, his spiritual body had reached the low-grade sky spiritual body. A low-grade heaven spiritual body was considered a genius in the Yuan continent. Back then, the Azure region did not even have a single low-tier heaven spiritual body. On the other hand, Li Ke's spirit body was just an ordinary spirit body. Zhuang Xiao's spirit Bodhi's power was enough to crush Li Ke. Boom! Zhuang Xiao waved her spear and smashed it down. There was no technique to speak of in this spear attack. It was just a simple spear strike. With the infusion of true essence, the long spear rapidly grew in size, like a giant pillar that held up the sky, and smashed down towards Li Ke. Bang! Bang! Li Ke's sword light was shattered by the spear, and the huge spear smashed into Li Ke's body. Li Ke's body was like a broken sandbag as he crashed heavily into the fighting ring below, causing it to rumble continuously. Li Ke lay on the fighting ring, spitting out blood. His eyes were full of disbelief. He had actually been crushed by Zhuang Xiaoshan in one move. 3 months ago, this piece of trash who couldn't even take a single move from him had actually crushed him with a single move. He found it hard to accept. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. Li Ke was known as one of the top 10 elites of the Divine Wilderness continent. In other words, other than the top 10 heavens favorites, no one else was Li Ke's match. But now, he was defeated by Zhuang Xiaoshan in one move. Was this Lu Ming's disciple? If the disciple was like this, how could the master be bad? Brother Xiaoshan is so powerful. Huarou called out. Huaqi Xia Juyang, and the others were also stunned. They were very clear about Zhuang Xiaoshan's cultivation and combat power. How did he become so strong after not seeing him for a while? You're cheating. You're cheating. There are other experts helping you in secret. Li Ke shouted crazily. He remembered the last time. Last time, someone had helped Zhuang Xiaoshan in secret. He was later defeated by Zhuang Xiaoshan, and he was also crushed by Zhuang Xiaoshan's spear, just like this time. No one is secretly making a move, the master of Divine Ox Palace said indifferently, and his voice resounded throughout the entire place. This time, the Divine Ox Palace had lost to the sovereign family. They had to give up the precious land of the East Baron, which made him very unhappy. Now that he saw the sovereign family suffer a loss, he was naturally happy. No one would doubt the words of the master of the Divine Ox Palace. He was a martial emperor realm expert, and an expert among martial emperors at that. How is that possible? Li Ke found it hard to believe. You're just a piece of trash, yet you still dare to criticize others. Zhuang Xiaoshan said sarcastically. Chapter 2178. Not even worthy to lick Lu Ming's shoes. Chapter 2178. Not even worthy to lick Lu Ming's shoes. Li Ke was so furious that he spat out another mouthful of blood. High up in the stands, Sakura's eyes flashed with a trace of displeasure. However, with his status, he naturally would not flare up on the spot, because of the defeat of a junior. If you have some ability, let me test you. A cold glint flashed across Ken Qianxing's eyes as he took a step forward, intending to press on Zhuang Xiaoshan. However, the fat man stood in front of Zhuang Xiaoshan and said, "Trash, I'm your opponent. 1 inch, then I'll kill you first." Ren Qianxing coldly snorted. After being called trash by Fatty time and time again, his killing intent was incomparably thick. Ren Qianxing's Saint Realm cultivation was completely unleashed. His laws were surging, and Saint energy surrounded his body. The Saint power rolled up, stirring up a storm that kept rolling toward Fatty. However, Fatty didn't react at all. He was still grinning. The Sage Realm is so amazing. He can explode at any time as if no one has ever seen him. The Fatty was disdainful. Many people were roaring in their hearts. The Sage Realm was indeed impressive at this stage. Not many people in the Divine Wilderness could reach it, much less the younger generation. But the next moment, everyone's eyes widened. This was because Fatty's body was also emitting a powerful aura. That was also the aura of a sage might that wasn't any weaker than Ren Qianxing's. The Sage Realm. This Fatty has also reached the Sage Realm. Nest, one couldn't tell. The heavenly Tao is unfair. This Fatty is so fat and ugly, but he has also reached the Sage Realm. It's unfair. A group of girls shouted. The fat man had originally purr on the air of a peerless master, but when he heard this, he was instantly stunned and then furious. In his heart, he was scolding these women for having no taste and liking sissies. Hence, he decided to vent all his anger on Ren Qianxing. Ren Qianxing was stunned as well. He was extremely displeased. There was actually someone from Arichi younger generation who had entered the Sage Realm like him. So what if you've entered Arichi Sage Realm? You're still weak in my hands. 111 defeat you in one move. 1 inch soaring wind sword. Ren Qianxing made his move. The first move he made was an innate technique. Rays of sword light appeared in the air and shot towards the Fatty at an astonishing speed. Watch me break your divine art. The Fatty shouted as he swung his battle axe. Buzz! An axe radiance shook the heavens, and was incomparably huge. It swept across thousands of troops, as if it could split open the sky. This was the divine ability that Lu Ming had given him. Although he had only cultivated IR for a short period of time, his mastery was still low. However, Fatty's current spirit body was a medium-grade heaven spirit body. When he burst out, his power was shocking. Ren Qianxing's spiritual body was only a mid-grade earth spiritual body. Back in the divine wilderness, it might have been extremely rare. However, when compared to Fatty, he was still far from it. As the axe radiance swept past, all of Ren Qianxing's sword radiance was completely extinguished. However, the axe radiance didn't stop and continued slashing towards Ren Qianxing. Ren Qianxing was almost scared to death. He roared in fear and retreated frantically. In the end, he was almost cut in half by the axe. Although he dodged IR, his chest was still swept by the axe's radiance. A deep wound appeared and blood flowed out. The terrifying destructive power gushed into his body, causing him to spit out large mouthfuls of blood. The entire place fell silent. Most of the people were looking at the scene in disbelief. Ren Qianxing had actually been defeated. He was defeated in one move. He was the #1 prodigy in Arichi Divine Wilderness, and he was also known as Arichi #1 prodigy since ancient times. Now he had actually been defeated by Fatty in one move. How is this possible? How is this possible? No, this can't be real. Many ignorant girls shook their heads in confusion. It was hard for them to believe that their idol was so weak. That's impossible, Ren Qianxing howled in disbelief. Previously, he had said that he would defeat Arichi Fatty in one move. But now, he had been defeated by the Fatty in one move. He was known as the #1 heaven's favorite since ancient times. He couldn't bear such a blow. His eyes were red, and he wanted to cut the Fatty into pieces. Bastard, go to hell! He charged at Fatty in a frenzy. I'll play with you. Fatty kept his battle axe and rushed towards Ren Qianxing as he sent out a punch. This punch was unstoppable, and it directly shattered Ren Qianxing's attack before landing on his face. Ren Qianxing screamed as he was sent flying. His teeth and blood splattered everywhere. Those ignorant girls were all stunned. They felt like their faith had collapsed. It turned out that their idol was not invincible, but completely vulnerable. Hua Qi, Xia Zhuyang, Xiao Wan, and the others were all stunned. They were extremely puzzled. How did Fatty's combat strength suddenly increase to such a shocking level? Xiao Wan, Xia Zhuyang, and the others had also broken through to the Bright Saint realm, but they would still lose to Ren Qianxing without a doubt, because they did not have the corresponding sacred art. However, this Fatty was able to easily suppress Ren Qianxing. In addition, Zhuang Xiaoshan's cultivation and combat power had also improved greatly. What was going on? Could it be that they had encountered a great fortuitous encounter? They could not figure it out. Ren Qianxing couldn't figure it out either. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Fatty. Bang! However, at the next moment, the Fatty punched him in the face again, and he was sent flying again while screaming. His face was so unrecognizable that it was unbearable to look at. A piece of trash like you dares to claim to be Arichi #1 prodigy in history. You're simply shameless. You're not even worthy to lick Lu Ming's shoes. A piece of trash like you wants to marry Ni Suaro? You're even more shameless. If I were you, I'd kill myself. It's embarrassing to live like this. The fat man continued to mock. Ren Qianxing howled in anger as he spat out another mouthful of blood. Men, skin that Fatty and pull out his tendons. Ren Qianxing howled. Kill. Suddenly, an expert from the Di family stepped out and charged at the Fatty. This person was in the great circle of the absolute saint realm. His aura was earth-shattering. Sakura's face was gloomy, but he didn't stop her. Wayaya, how despicable. You can't beat him, so you call for help. He'll run. Fatty ran off. Let's see how you can run away from me. The sovereign race's absolute saint in the great circle had a cold expression. He extended his hand and grabbed the Fatty. The giant hand covered the sky, and Fatty had nowhere to run. Not good. Hua Qi, Xiao Wan, Xia Zhuyang, Yan Kuangtu, and the others' expressions changed drastically. They wanted to help, but the difference in their cultivation base was too great. They wanted to help, but they were powerless. Whoosh! At this moment, a black light burst out from the crowd. It was thousands of meters long and cut off the big hand. Furthermore, the black light did not stop. It was unbelievably fast as it directly slashed through the forehead of the Imperial Race Absolute Saint in the Great Circle. Pucci! The Imperial Race Absolute Saint in the Great Circle was cut in half, and his body fell to the ground. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. A person in the Great Circle of the Absolute Saint realm had been lulled just like that, without being able to fight back at all. Who was doing this? Chapter 2179. The Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance is back. Chapter 2179. The Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance is back. Boom. Boom. At this moment, all the experts of the Monarch family were emitting a shocking aura and cold killing intent. Who is it? A sovereign race expert roared, but his eyes were fixed on the Divine Ox Palace and the Barbaric Dragon Palace. Anyone who could kill an absolute saint in the Great Circle was definitely stronger than an absolute saint in the Great Circle. It was very likely that he was an expert in the Emperor-to-be realm. However, the people from the Divine Wilderness did not have such high cultivation. It was very likely that they were from the Divine Ox Palace or the Savage Dragon Hall. They suspected that it was the Divine Ox Palace and the Savage Dragon Palace who had secretly made a move. Don't look at me like that. I didn't send anyone to attack. I don't have any either. The Master of Divine Ox Palace and Manlong Palace both denied it with innocent faces. Who is it? Come out. Otherwise these kids will die. The Monarch race's quasi-emperors stepped out, and their cold killing intent enveloped the fatty and the others. However, an aura burst out from the crowd and crushed the killing intent of the Monarch race's quasi-emperor. Then a dark-skinned young man stepped out. This young man was Lu Ming. He had already used the Divine Breath technique to change his appearance before coming here. Kid, was it you who attacked just now? The Emperor-to-be from the Monarch race said coldly. You're asking the obvious. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Are you from the Divine Ox Palace or the Manlong Palace? The Monarch race quasi-emperor asked. I'm from the Dragon Alliance. Lu Ming continued to smile. Many people were astonished, especially Xiao Wan and the others, who were somewhat stunned. Lu Ming said that he was from the Dragon Alliance. They did not have such a strong expert. Obviously, the Emperor-to-be from the Monarch race did not believe him. He thought that Lu Ming was playing with him. You should be from the Yuan continent, right? It can be considered so. Lu Ming continued to smile. You're alone. The Monarch race's quasi-emperor asked again. Nonsense. Which eye of yours saw that one have two people? Lu Ming berated. The Monarch race's Emperor-to-be's eyes turned even colder. Sir, you killed a member of my D family. Today you won't be able to leave. Boom. The Emperor-to-be from the Monarch race made his move. He stepped forward, and a terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming smiled and took a light step forward. Countless runes appeared and condensed into a god of death. The Grim Reaper wielded his scythe and slashed at the Monarch race's quasi-emperor. Pucci! The Monarch-to-be of the Monarch race was easily cut in half by the Reaper's scythe. Hiss hiss hiss, gasps of shock could be heard. An Emperor-to-be was killed in seconds without even a chance to resist. Could it be that he was also a Marshal Supreme? I know who he is. The Black-faced Grim Reaper. It's the Black-faced Grim Reaper. Suddenly someone shouted. What? The Black-faced Grim Reaper? That's him. The legendary Black-faced Grim Reaper is a dark-skinned young man who can summon the Grim Reaper to fight. He's extremely terrifying. People kept exclaiming. Many people looked at Lu Ming with respect. 3 months ago, during the fight for the Holy Spirit fruit at Wuyuan Mountain, the Black-faced Grim Reaper appeared out of nowhere and displayed his terrifying combat strength, killing the experts of the Sovereign Race, Divine Ox Palace, and Savage Dragon Hall in one fell swoop. News of this had spread throughout the Divine Wilderness continent. Most of them had heard of the Black-faced Grim Reaper. However, the Black-faced Grim Reaper was extremely mysterious. Ever since he showed his face the last time, he had disappeared without a trace. The three great forces had sent experts to hunt down the Black-faced Grim Reaper, but to no avail. He did not expect the black-faced Grim Reaper to suddenly appear. It's him, he's really looking for death. He dared to kill the people of my divine Ox Palace. Today one will get rid of him. Not only the sovereign race, but also the divine Bull Palace and the Manlong Palace. They all looked at Lu Ming coldly. However, Lu Ming had a smile on his face. He did not care at all. So he's the backer of the Fatty and the others. Many people were moved. He finally understood why Fatty and the others were so bold and dared to cause trouble. It turned out that the backer behind them was the black-faced Grim Reaper. Boom! At this moment, Sakura stood up from his seat, and a terrifying aura spread out, covering the sky and earth. Many people trembled and almost knelt down. So you're the black-faced Grim Reaper. But since you dare to show off in my territory today, one think you've come to the wrong place. Sakura said coldly. Your territory? This is the Imperial Dragon City, the territory of the Dragon Alliance. It's the territory of the leader of the Dragon Alliance, Lu Ming. When did it become your territory? Lu Ming said with a strange expression. He's really shameless. Lu Ming? What a joke. A little guy who's not even a martial emperor. How could he be qualified to control Dragon Emperor City? Sakura opened his mouth coldly. Don't you dare insult my master. Zhuang Xiao glared at Sakura. Haha, what a joke. How dare you insult your master? Your master Lu Ming is nothing. He's already a thing of the past. If he appears again, one can crush him with one finger. Ren Qianqing taunted and mocked. Oh. Lu Ming looked at Ren Qianqing with a strange expression and said, I'm right here. Come and try crushing me. With that, Lu Ming's appearance changed rapidly, and he returned to his original appearance. What? Everyone was stunned when they heard Lu Ming's words. However, when they saw Lu Ming's appearance, many of them were tongue-tied and completely stunned. In the Divine Wilderness continent, it could be said that most people had seen Lu Ming's appearance. Back then, Lu Ming unified the Divine Wilderness and established the Dragon Alliance. He was the supreme leader. There were portraits of Lu Ming in all the forces, big and small. There was also a huge statue of Lu Ming in the Imperial Dragon City. Now that they saw Lu Ming's true form, they were all stunned. Lu Ming! It's really Lu Ming! Xia Zhuyang, Xiao Wan, and the others were the first to react. They cried out in disbelief. It's really Lu Ming! The leader of the Dragon Alliance, Lu Ming, is back. My God, it's true. He's so much stronger than before. Even an emperor-to-be was killed in seconds. Countless people cried out in alarm. It turned out that the famous black-faced god of killing was Lu Ming, the master of the Dragon Alliance. Then someone thought of more. It turned out that the fatty, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and Zhuang Zyrus backer was Lu Ming. Could it be that their combat strength had suddenly soared because of Lu Ming? Ren Qianqing, what qualifications do you have to be mentioned in the same breath as my master? What's even more laughable is that he even said that the #1 genius in the Divine Wilderness has surpassed my master. Zhuang Xiaoshan looked at Ren Qianqing in disdain as he sneered. He's just a piece of trash. What right does he have to compare himself with Lu Ming? Lu Ming only taught me for a few months, but he can't even take one of my moves. He's simply a piece of trash. The fat man mocked. Ren Qianxing's expression turned unsightly. Lu Ming could even kill an emperor-to-be. His combat strength was extremely terrifying. Moreover, if what the fatty said was true, it would be even more terrifying. He had only taught the fatty for a few months, and he could defeat him in seconds. He was far inferior to Lu Ming. There was simply no comparison. It was simply ridiculous. Chapter 2180. Chapter 2180. Breaking an Oath. Chapter 2180. Chapter 2180. Breaking an Oath. Lu Ming revealed his true form. The entire place was shocked and clamoring. There were only a few Yuan continent experts present. Most of them were from the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming's status in the Divine Wilderness continent was too high. More than 10 years ago, Lu Ming had left the Divine Wilderness to cultivate in the Yuan continent. Now that he had returned, he had indeed displayed shocking combat power. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master. At this moment, Xiao Wan, Xia Zhuyang, Yin Kuangtu, and the rest saluted Lu Ming together. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master. Following that, more and more people saluted Lu Ming. When the Dragon Alliance had unified the world, there were countless members. There was a large group of Dragon Alliance members present. They were extremely excited to see Lu Ming, Senior Xie, Senior Zhuyang, Big Brother Yan, Hua Qi. Let's have a drink and chat after we've dealt with these people from the Yuan continent. Lu Ming said and nodded at Xiaowan and the others. These words made Sakura and the others' faces turn cold, and their bodies were filled with a cold aura. Lu Ming, you've cultivated in the Yuan continent for a period of time, and have made some progress. However, you're still far from being able to go against me alone. You must have someone supporting you from behind. Call out the person behind you. Sakura said coldly. I don't need the help of others to deal with you all by myself. Lu Ming said calmly. Many people were stunned. How was it possible for Lu Ming to deal with Sakura alone? I can easily suppress you with a flip of my hand. Sakura opened his mouth indifferently, and his aura became even colder. Thump. Then Sakura took a step forward. This step caused the entire sky to rumble and explode. An incomparably terrifying pressure pressed down on the entire world. His body emitted endless golden light, like an invincible emperor looking down on the world. The pressure came in waves. It was too terrifying. Many people with insufficient cultivation directly knelt down. It was difficult to resist. Many people roared and knelt down unwillingly, desperately resisting. At this time, the master of the Divine Ox Palace and the Manlong Hall master released an aura that rippled out like water, relieving the pressure on the others. Many people heaved a sigh of relief, and then looked frightened. Too strong, Sakura is too strong. He's completely unfathomable and unrivaled. Indeed, just the overflowing chi is enough to make me explode. How can there be such a powerful person in this world? Lu Ming is finished. No matter how strong he is, he can't be Sakura's match. Many people were discussing. After feeling the aura overflowing from Sakura Asia, many people were terrified of Sakura Asia's strength, and thought that Lu Ming could not compete with Sakura Asia at all. Although Lu Ming was a prodigy, he had only cultivated for a few years. How could he possibly fight against such a person? How dare you, Sakura, you dare to attack me? At this moment, Lu Ming's loud shout reverberated throughout the entire area, causing many people to be dumbfounded. Sakura himself was also stunned. Why did he not dare to attack Lu Ming? At this moment, a token appeared in Lu Ming's hand, shining with golden light. Sakura, why aren't you paying your respects to me? Lu Ming said coldly. Hunyuan Sect's Golden Inheritance Token. So you're the golden inheritor of Hunyuan Sect. Sakura Asia's eyes burst out with a bright light. It's good that you know. Lu Ming looked at Sakura indifferently, his face calm. Back then, when he became the Hunyuan Sect's gold inheritor, he had obtained a name list. On the name list, there was Sakura D, a bronze inheritor. Be it the bronze or silver inheritors, they had all sworn to follow the orders of the gold inheritors. Lu Ming took out the golden inheritance token and waited to see Sakura's reaction. Sakura's face changed, and then he laughed. Lu Ming, you're really funny. You actually want to use the golden inheritors token to suppress me. Don't you know that after reaching the martial emperor realm, you have the ability to go against oaths? Ordinary blood oaths can't do anything to me. Today, I'll kill you and take the golden inheritors token. Sakura Asia laughed, full of ridicule. These people really don't know how to keep the oath they made back then. Lu Ming shook his head and kept the golden inheritance token. He had never thought of using the inheritance token to make Sakura submit. He had only wanted to verify it earlier. Boom! Sakura took another step forward, and the terrifying pressure became even stronger. Hua Qi, Xiaowan, Xia Zhuyang, and the others all looked nervous. Fatty, Zhuang Xiaoro, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and the others also looked nervous. Although they believed in Lu Ming, the other party was too powerful. He was really too powerful. It was beyond their imagination. Alliance Master is very calm. He should be confident. Xiaowan said. Based on their understanding of Lu Ming, they knew that he would not fight a battle that he was not confident of winning. He must have something to rely on to be so calm. Clan Master D, leave this kid to me. I can feel that this kid's hands are stained with the blood of my clan. At this moment, an unusually burly figure stepped out from behind Sakura. This person was covered in heavy iron armor and was 4 meters tall. Lu Ming could tell that this was an evil god. Although the aura that this evil god tribe member exuded was not as strong as Sakura Asia, it was still extremely terrifying. He was a 1-star Void Emperor. Sakura stopped in his tracks. Since someone was doing it for him, he was too lazy to do it. Brat, your hands are stained with the blood of my clan. Die. The evil god tribe's expert held a mace in his hand and swept it out. Boom. The space exploded, and the mace was swung at Lu Ming with a terrifying force. What a terrifying power. Many people were shocked. The present was different from the past. Right now, the divine wilderness continent's space was extremely stable. Everyone's flying speed was many times slower, much less breaking through space. But now the evil god tribe's mace had swept out, causing the space to explode. It was clear how powerful this attack was. Many people's hearts were in their throats, worried for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's expression was calm. He reached out with a claw and grabbed outwards. A huge hand formed and grabbed the mace. Bang! The mace hit the hand, but the hand didn't move at all. It grabbed the mace and shook it. Buzz! The mace shook violently, and a terrifying force was sent out. The evil god race member screamed out in pain as the thick armor on his body exploded. His arm also exploded, causing blood and flesh to splatter everywhere. Die! Lu Ming said coldly. He then shook his hand, and the huge mace flew back, hitting the evil god tribe member. Bang! The evil god tribe member's entire body was like a huge watermelon that exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and his soul was scattered. A 1-star illusionary emperor from the evil god tribe was killed by Lu Ming in seconds. The entire place quieted down. This scene shocked everyone. Earlier on, the aura that the evil god tribe's expert had revealed was not weak. Although it was not comparable to De Chertion's, it was still extremely terrifying. To the people of the divine wilderness continent, they were unfathomable and unrivaled existences. However, such an existence was killed by Lu Ming in one move. Chapter 2181. Chapter 2180. Legendary, still a legendary. Chapter 2181. Chapter 2180. Legendary. Still a legendary. Everyone looked at Lu Ming in a daze. After a long time, many people heaved a sigh of relief. As for Xiao Wan and the other members of the Dragon Alliance, their eyes were filled with wild joy. Lu Ming's combat strength had exceeded their imagination. At this moment, Sakura Asia's eyes revealed a trace of killing intent. Lu Ming, it seems that I have underestimated you. You can actually kill a 1-star Void Emperor. Sakura said coldly. However, he was still confident and not worried. He was a 3-star Void Emperor. The difference between a 1-star Void Emperor and a 3-star Void Emperor was too great. He could easily kill a 1-star Void Emperor in seconds. He did not think that Lu Ming could fight him. Moreover, he could tell that Lu Ming had not broken through to the Emperor-to-be realm. No matter how strong the Emperor-to-be was, how could he be a match for a 3-star Void Emperor? Lu Ming, I'll end you personally. Sakura Asia's body exuded a cold killing intent, and his aura was monstrous. Kill. This time, Lu Ming made his move directly. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with Sakura and directly attacked. Boom, 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 boom. In the process of rushing out, the aura on Lu Ming's body kept exploding and rising. One law after another burst out. 5 types of nomological laws erupted one after another, forming a 5-colored river of nomological laws. This is the law of chaos and the law of death. How is this possible? Impossible. This is impossible. In an instant, Sakura Asia's expression changed drastically as he roared madly, as if he had discovered something unbelievable and unbelievable. Boom! Lu Ming struck out with his palm. The sky and earth rumbled, and the space was penetrated. The Emperor soared. Sakura roared. At this moment, he was extremely frightened and exploded with all his strength, hoping to block it. At that moment, Lu Ming released 5 types of laws, 2 ultimate laws and 3 king path laws. He was almost scared to death. At this moment, the experts of the Divine Ox Palace and the barbaric Dragon Palace were almost scared to death as they roared madly. The people from the Divine Wilderness continent did not know how shocking Lu Ming's display of 5 types of laws was. However, they who came from the Yuan continent naturally knew. Their hearts were in a state of shock. Thump! At that moment, Lu Ming and Sakura's attacks collided. Boom! Lu Ming's palm force bombarded the Emperor's sword that Sakura slashed out. Buzz! The Emperor's sword trembled violently, as if it could not bear the burden, and finally exploded. Lu Ming's palm did not stop, and continued to bombard forward, hitting Sakura's chest. Sakura's chest was directly penetrated, leaving a hole in it. The terrifying power of destruction poured into Sakura's body crazily, destroying his life. You, how is that possible? Blood kept gushing out of Sakura Asia's mouth. He stared at Lu Ming with disbelief. Even now, he still could not believe that a person could master 5 types of laws before breaking through to the martial emperor realm. 2 of them were even ultimate laws. This had simply broken his understanding of martial arts. The next moment, a terrifying destructive power rushed into Sakura Asia's body. Sakura Asia's body exploded and turned into ashes. Even his soul was destroyed. Lu Ming waved his hand and kept Sakura's storage ring. At this moment, the scene was in a dead silence. Countless people were dumbfounded and their eyes widened. In their eyes, the supreme Yuan continent powerhouse, the unrivaled Sakura Asia, could not even last 1 move in Lu Ming's hands. He was instantly killed in 1 move. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, it would seem like a fantasy story. Master is invincible. Master is invincible. After a long while, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiao finally reacted. They were so excited that they trembled and shouted, "The Alliance Master is invincible!" Then, the members of the Dragon Alliance came back to their senses and started to shout in excitement. At that moment, Lu Ming was supreme and invincible in their eyes. The shouts came wave after wave, soaring into the clouds. Hua Qi, Shuelian, Xia Zhuyang, and the others were also trembling with excitement. As for those from the Sovereign Race, Divine Ox Palace and Manlong Palace, their faces were deathly pale. Lu Ming stretched out his hand, and the place quieted down. Lu Ming turned around and looked at Ren Qianxing indifferently. "Didn't you just want to crush me with 1 finger? Make your move," Lu Ming said calmly. Plop! Ren Qianxing's body went limp as he collapsed onto the ground. His face was completely drained of blood, and he was so frightened that he almost cried. Was he courting death by attacking Lu Ming? Even Sakura Asia was no match for Lu Ming. He was simply an ant in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming could probably kill him with a single breath. Such a person still wants to be on par with my master. He even brags that he has surpassed my master, and is known as the #1 in the Divine Wilderness. What a joke! Zhuang Xiao mocked. Many people also sneered. Indeed, Ren Qianxing was not qualified to be compared to Lu Ming. They were on completely different levels. This was especially so for those who had previously thought that Ren Qianxing had already surpassed Lu Ming, and regarded him as the #1 throughout the ages. Their faces were flushed red, and they were too ashamed to show their faces. Ren Qianxing was not even fit to carry Lu Ming's shoes. Legend, he's still a legend. An old man sighed. Everyone immediately nodded, greatly moved. Yes, a legend was still a legend. Back then, Lu Ming was a legend of the Divine Wilderness continent. He rose up from the ground, and eventually unified the Divine Wilderness. He was an unprecedented legend in the Divine Wilderness continent. Now, after cultivating in the Yuan continent for more than 10 years, his combat strength had reached an unimaginable realm. Even someone as powerful as Sakura D was killed in 1 move. Lu Ming was still a legend. Let's go! At this moment, the Monarch race and the remaining Evil God race members finally reacted. They all rushed up into the sky, wanting to escape. You want to leave? All of you stay, Lu Ming said coldly, and threw a punch. Roar! Roar! This punch was filled with countless runes. Then, the runes condensed into true dragons that pounced out with a roar. The sovereign race's martial emperor powerhouse had already been killed by Lu Ming. Anyone below the martial emperor realm would not be able to withstand a single blow. When the true dragon pounced, no matter if it was an emperor-to-be or an absolute saint, they were all killed in seconds. A series of screams rang out, but it soon quieted down. The experts of the sovereign race and evil god race were all killed. Plop! At this moment Li Ke knelt down and screamed, "Lu Ming, no, Alliance Master Lu, please spare my life. Please spare my dog life." Earlier on, his master was killed by Lu Ming. He was scared to death now. "Alliance Master Lu, please spare me." Ren Qianxing also started pleading. "Fatty Xiaoshan Xiaorou, I'll leave these people to you," Lu Ming said. "All right." The fat man carried the battle axe and rushed out. "No, I don't want to die." Ren Qianxing howled as he turned and ran. Li Ke was the same. However, their combat power was far from that of Fatty and Zhuang Xiaoshan, so they were killed in a few moves. Chapter 2182. Chapter 2181. Kill them all. Chapter 2182. Chapter 2181. Kill them all now. Everyone knew why Fatty, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and the rest's cultivation and combat strength had soared so much. It was all because of Lu Ming. At the same time, everyone's respect for Lu Ming grew. It only took a few months for Fatty, Zhuang Xiaoshan, and the others to increase their cultivation and combat power, so much that they could easily suppress Ren Qianxing and the others. This was simply unbelievable. They thought of that sentence again. A legend was still a legend. At this moment, Lu Ming cast his gaze at the Divine Ox Palace's master of the Manlong Dragon Hall. "We pay our respects to Alliance Master Lu." The master of the Divine Ox Palace and the Manlong Hall felt a chill run down his spine. He put on an ugly smile and came over to greet Lu Ming. Just now they had wanted to run away. However, Lu Ming was too terrifying. Where could they run to? Lu Ming would probably catch up to them and kill them. Therefore, he might as well stay behind and express his goodwill to Lu Ming. "I'm very curious. Where are you from in the Yuan continent?" Lu Ming looked at the leaders of the two forces. "Alliance Master Lu, I'm from the land of the divine beasts," the master of Divine Ox Palace said. "I'm from the land of the heavenly berserkers," the Manlong Dragon Hall master said. "How did you guys get here? Why would he suddenly come to such a remote place like the Divine Wilderness continent?" Lu Ming asked again. He was very curious about this, and he wanted to know. If they could come, so could the others. Lu Ming was very worried about this. It would be troublesome if a stronger existence, such as a high-level illusionary emperor, or a true emperor came. "I once found an ancient map by chance. The ancient map recorded that in the desolate land, there was a paradise. The cultivation environment was much better than many sacred grounds in the Yuan continent. I followed the map and found an ancient teleportation array. That was how one came to the divine wilderness," the master of Divine Ox Palace said. "Me too." The master of Manlong Hall nodded, similar to the master of Divine Ox Palace. "Where's your map? Let me see," Lu Ming said. The master of the Divine Ox Palace and the hall master of the Manlong Hall looked at each other. Then, they each took out a jade talisman and handed it to Lu Ming. The other side. These were the two overlords of the Yuan continent. Previously, they were the overlords of the Divine Wilderness continent. But now, they were like two servants, trembling in fear in front of Lu Ming. The difference between before and after was too great. This made countless people sigh. Lu Ming took the two jade talismans and scanned them with his spiritual senses. Indeed, they were two ancient maps. "Other than you guys, no one else knows?" Lu Ming continued to ask. "No, I didn't tell anyone. He only brought a few of his subordinates to the Divine Wilderness." "Me too." The two of them shook their heads. The two of them were also ordinary emperor-level forces in the Yuan continent, similar to the monarch race. Lu Ming muttered to himself. "Alliance Master Lu, since you are back, how about we split the Divine Wilderness equally with the Dragon Alliance?" The master of the Divine Ox Palace looked at Lu Ming carefully and suggested, "You guys still want to split up the Divine Wilderness?" Lu Ming said with a half-smile. The master of the Divine Ox Palace and the Manlong Palace master both had ugly expressions. Finally, the master of Divine Ox Palace gritted his teeth and said, "Alliance Master Lu, am willing to join the Dragon Alliance in the future and serve you. I'm also willing. They had no choice but to lower their heads when they were under the roof. Oh, join the Dragon Alliance? Lu Ming touched his chin and muttered to himself. Yes, that's good. After a while Lu Ming nodded. The master of Divine Ox Palace and Man Long Hall were overjoyed, but a cold light flashed in the depths of their eyes. As long as they could stabilize Lu Ming, they would send people back to Yuan Continent and invite more experts. By then, they did not believe that they could not kill Lu Ming. However, at this moment Lu Ming made his move. It was so sudden that the masters of the Divine Ox Palace and the Savage Dragon Palace were caught off guard. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming struck out with his palms twice in a row, hitting the two of them. Their bodies were pierced, and the terrifying destructive power gushed into them. The two of them widened their eyes and looked at Lu Ming in disbelief. I still believe in the dead. At the Martial Emperor realm, the power of an oath is already too weak. If you secretly return to the Yuan continent later and find stronger experts, I will put myself in danger. So you should all die, Lu Ming said coldly. Then the power of his palm exploded, and the masters of the two forces were turned into ashes. Let's go. The remaining people of the two forces were shocked. Some of them reacted and tried to escape. Kill. After killing the two forces' leaders, Lu Ming did not stop at all. He immediately charged at the two forces' leaders. There were also martial emperor powerhouses in these two forces. However, they could not withstand a single blow from Lu Ming, and were killed in an instant. Following that, those below the martial supreme realm did not manage to escape either. They were all killed in the blink of an eye. This scene was shocking. The three major powers of the Yuan continent that had dominated the divine wilderness for many years had been annihilated because of Lu Ming's return. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master. At this moment, everyone from the Dragon League knelt down to pay their respects to Lu Ming. They understood that the Dragon Alliance was about to unify the divine wilderness again. No one could match him. As for those who weren't from the Dragon Alliance, or those who had betrayed the Dragon Alliance, they were all trembling. From today onwards, the Dragon Alliance will be rebuilt and reorganized. Lu Ming's voice was heard by everyone. Leave all of this to Xiao Wan and Xia Jiuyang. Deal with these people. They'll go and get rid of the remaining forces of the three great factions. As soon as Lu Ming finished speaking, he took a step forward and rushed into the depths of the Imperial Dragon City. He began to spread out his spiritual consciousness to search for the remnants of the sovereign race and the evil god race. As long as he found them, he would kill them on the spot. After that, Lu Ming rushed to the Eastern Barren Territory to kill the remaining members of the Divine Ox Palace. Then, he came to the Southern Underworld to kill the remaining members of the Manlong Palace. After that, Lu Ming rushed to the overseas area. The ancient teleportation formation that connected the continents of the Divine Ruins to the Yuan continent was not only in the ancient city of the Divine Ruins. There were also teleportation formations on other continents. Lu Ming wanted to find and destroy all of them to prevent experts from the Yuan continent from coming again. In the following month, Lu Ming walked around the Divine Ruins continents and found more than a dozen teleportation altars. All of them were destroyed by Lu Ming, leaving only the teleportation arrays that led to the Azure Continent, Cloud Continent, and the Emperor Continent. At this time, the Dragon Alliance had been reorganized. Some people who had betrayed the Dragon Alliance because of the arrival of the Yuanlu forces had been dealt with. However, there were more people who joined the Dragon Alliance. Now that Lu Ming had returned and killed the three major forces of the Yuan continent, everyone was shocked. It could be said that with Lu Ming in charge of the Dragon Alliance, it was the true overlord, and no one could shake it. Many experts had joined the Dragon League. The Imperial Dragon City was being rebuilt again. When Lu Ming returned to the Imperial Dragon City, another huge statue of Lu Ming was erected. It was bigger and more majestic than before. After Lu Ming returned, he held a grand banquet and brought Li Ping, Lu Yuntian, and the others back to the Imperial Dragon City. After that, Lu Ming took over the Imperial Dragon City and handed over a large number of resources to Xiao Wan and the others. For example, there were all sorts of domain-level martial arts techniques, divine abilities, oriocs, and pills. Xiao Wan and the others were ecstatic. With these, their cultivation speed would skyrocket, and their combat power would also be stronger. Chapter 2183. The Mysterious Passage. Chapter 2183. The Mysterious Passage. After that, Lu Ming had Xiao Wan, Hua Qi, Xia Zhuyang, Yan Kuangtu, and the others enter the Dian Elixir Furnace to help them refine their spiritual bodies. The higher-ups of the Dragon League had their spirit bodies strengthened, and their cultivation speed was also increasing rapidly. Of course, Lu Ming had also tempered Li Ping and Lu Yunshan's physical bodies and raised the level of their bloodlines. Their cultivation bases were also rapidly increasing. The resources that Lu Ming brought back were too abundant, especially the Nirvana pills. Lu Ming bought a lot of them. The bloodline level of the disciples of the Dragon Alliance skyrocketed and evolved continuously. In addition to the excellent cultivation environment, the strength of the entire Dragon League was also rapidly improving. In the past, the Divine Wilderness continent underwent a huge change, and the cultivation conditions had changed drastically. However, they did not have any cultivation techniques, nor did they have any mystic arts or martial techniques. So it was difficult for them to achieve a huge breakthrough. And now it was the real explosion. In order to obtain domain martial arts techniques, magical techniques, and various pills, more people joined the Dragon League. The power of the Dragon Alliance expanded rapidly, covering every corner. Not only that, but Xiao Wan and the others also sent out an army to subdue the other continents. The continent group of the Divine Ruins was all under the control of the Dragon Alliance. Time flew by, and half a year had passed. In the past 6 months, other than helping others to temper their spirit bodies, Lu Ming did not stop cultivating. He focused on understanding the alchemy Dao laws, and his mastery of the alchemy Dao laws became deeper and deeper. Let's go to 9 Dragons and take a look. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Lu Ming had not been to 9 Dragons since he came back. He was very curious about what had happened there. Lu Ming broke through the air at an amazing speed. Soon, he entered the Eastern Barren territory and flew toward 9 Dragons. The concentration of the original Qi in the East continent was even more shocking, and countless people were cultivating in seclusion all over the East continent. The closer they got to 9 Dragons, the more concentrated the original Qi was. What a strong killing intent. Lu Ming frowned when he arrived outside 9 Dragons. He could feel the murderous intent in 9 Dragons. In this kind of murderous aura, people with insufficient cultivation would not be able to survive in 9 Dragons. They would be affected by the murderous aura, and even go crazy and die. Lu Ming felt that even a bright saint would find it difficult to establish a foothold here. One would need to be at least in the eminent saint realm to do so. There was no one in 9 Dragons at the moment. The original residents of 9 Dragons had long moved out of the city. One heard that this killing intent fluctuates and disappears for a period of time. At that time, countless people will enter 9 Dragons to cultivate. Lu Ming muttered. He had heard about this long ago. No one knew the reason. However, this murderous aura had no effect on Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped forward and entered 9 Dragons. In the past, there had been 9 huge dragon veins in 9 Dragons. At the head of each dragon vein, there was a divine 9-dragon cauldron. There were 9 dragon veins, 6 on the outside and 3 in the middle. But now there were only 3 dragon veins left in 9 Dragons. The 6 outside dragon veins had already flown away. It was said that they had flown into the middle of the 3 dragon veins in the middle and disappeared. Lu Ming made his way to the center of 9 Dragons. In the center of 9 Dragons, there were 3 huge dragon veins. The 3 dragon heads faced each other, and there was a large open space in the middle. Back then, the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace was built at this location. But now, the structure of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had long disappeared. In its place was a huge cave. Lu Ming stood at the entrance of the cave and looked over with rapt attention. In the cave there was a white mist. This was formed when the original Qi was dense to a certain extent. Extremely dense origin qi continuously spread out from the cave. Lu Ming took a closer look and realized that this should be a passageway, but he did not know where it led to. The rich origin qi was coming from the opposite side. Furthermore, the nomological fluctuations were coming from the other side, causing the divine wilderness continent to stabilize. At the same time, a thick murderous aura was emitted from the passage. Roar! At this moment, a dragon's roar sounded, shaking the world. Lu Ming was shocked, because the dragon's roar came from one of the dragon veins. Roar! Roar! Then, the dragon's roar continued to resound through the sky. Then the earth rumbled and shook. Lu Ming realized that one of the dragon veins was moving. Boom! 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 A dragon vein trembled continuously. In the end, it was like a real dragon that moved. The dragon vein, which was tens of millions of miles long, was like a huge real dragon. It twisted and finally rose into the sky. Its roar resounded through the sky and spread to an endless distance. At this moment outside Nine Dragons, people could hear the commotion even from thousands of miles away. Something is wrong with the dragon vein of Nine Dragons. I think another dragon vein is going to fly away. Every time a dragon vein flies away, the killing intent in Nine Dragons City will decrease sharply. Let's go. We can enter Nine Dragons City to cultivate for a while and find spiritual and sacred herbs on the way. At this moment, countless people were rushing to Nine Dragons. Roar! Roar! In Nine Dragons, the dragon's roar reverberated. Then, the dragon's vein shrank rapidly, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron on the top of the dragon's vein could be clearly seen. Finally, the dragon vein roared and rushed into the passage, disappearing. Another dragon's vein has flown away. What's on the other side of this passage? Lu Ming was extremely curious. He rushed in to find out the truth, but in the end he held back. What if he couldn't come back after entering? Now, he had just returned to the divine wilderness and did not want to leave. Lu Ming planned to wait for a period of time, when the situation in the divine wilderness had completely stabilized, before he would leave and enter this passageway to investigate. That's right, let's go to the blood pool to take a look. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared. Not long after, he arrived at the blood pool. The blood pool was located on a cliff of a huge mountain. On one of the cliffs there were 3 large words, the blood pool. Beside the words, there was a platform that protruded from the cliff. Behind it was a cave, which was the entrance to the blood pool. Looking at the entrance of the blood pool, Lu Ming reminisced. Back then, not long after they arrived in Nine Dragons, they were hunted down. Jian Filius' cultivation was crippled, and he was on the verge of death. They brought him to the blood pool. But later, Jian Filiu was taken away by a wisp of his remnant soul in the blood pool, and had disappeared without a trace. Today, Lu Ming was going to explore the blood pool. The blood pool contained a strong murderous aura and killing intent. Back then, Lu Ming could not even go deep into it. Before Lu Ming went to the Yuan continent, his cultivation had reached a high level, and he was able to kill a martial emperor. Lu Ming had also been to the blood pool once. However, the blood pool was unfathomable. The deeper one went, the stronger the killing intent. Even with Lu Ming's cultivation at that time, it was difficult for him to explore the bottom. However, Lu Ming's cultivation level was many times stronger than it was in the past. Lu Ming wanted to explore it again. Lu Ming moved and entered the entrance. However, Lu Ming was stunned the moment he entered. Originally, the blood pool contained an endless amount of blood, but now, all the blood in the blood pool had dried up, leaving only an empty cave. Chapter 2184. Where Mulan Went. Chapter 2184. Where Mulan went. In the blood pool, there was not a single drop of blood. It had completely dried up, leaving only a pitch-black cave. Lu Ming was somewhat dumbfounded. Could this be related to the world's metamorphosis? A thought flashed across Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming dashed into the cave and flew down. The cave was very deep. Lu Ming kept going down. After sinking for 100 miles, the cave actually slanted in one direction. That direction clearly led to the center of Nine Dragons. Lu Ming kept flying. At last, he saw a huge passage filled with dense white fog. Isn't this the passageway in the center of 9 dragons? The blood pool was actually connected to the passageway in 9 dragons. Is Jian Filiu in the other world on the other side of the tunnel? Lu Ming made a guess. Lu Ming pondered for a moment. Fai did not go in, but returned the way he came. Not long after Lu Ming returned to 9 dragons, he realized that the murderous aura in 9 dragons was getting weaker and weaker. He believed that many people would rush into 9 dragons to cultivate soon. Lu Ming did not stop. He left 9 dragons and returned to the Imperial Dragon City. In the days that followed, Lu Ming would occasionally give public lectures. Countless people from the Dragon Alliance would attend his lectures to improve their cultivation. At the same time, Qiuyu would also give lectures occasionally. When everyone found out that Qiuyu was also a martial sovereign, there was another commotion in the Divine Wilderness continent. With the help of resources, there were more and more masters in the Dragon Alliance, and everyone's cultivation was getting stronger and stronger. There were people constantly breaking through to the Martial Royal Realm, and there were also people constantly breaking through to the Saint Realm. The main reason was that Lu Ming's resources were too abundant. In addition, Lu Ming also took out a large number of corpses of golden crows and god wolves. These were the bodies of the experts from the Skywolf Tower of the Golden Crow clan. Many of them were absolute saints, even illusionary emperors, and true emperors. The bodies of such experts would not deteriorate even after thousands of years. They could be kept fresh. Of course, the essence qi of a great emperor's body was too dense. They used the golden crow meat and divine wolf meat to make meat soup. Even so, it was still very nourishing. Just a bowl of it would make their bodies emit essence qi. At the same time, Lu Ming would select some people to enter the mountain and river diagram and cultivate under the path understanding ancient tree. They would comprehend concepts and laws. In this way, his cultivation would improve very quickly. For example, the siblings Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaro had reached the Saint Realm very quickly. It was Lu Ming's father Lu Yuntian. Lu Ming had spent a lot of resources to make Lu Yunshan's cultivation base skyrocket. He had rushed to the Martial Emperor realm and was constantly advancing to the Sage realm. Li Ping did not have much talent in cultivation, but with Lu Ming's resources, she had managed to reach the spiritual god realm. She would not be far from the Martial Royal realm. The cultivation of Hua Qi and the others had also skyrocketed. As for Xiaowan, Xia Zhuyang, Yin Kuangtu, and the others, their talents were already very high. The fact that they had been able to achieve so much in such an environment back then was enough to explain everything. Now, under the support of various conditions, their cultivation had also broken through and advanced rapidly. Lu Ming did not stop either. He had been studying the alchemy Dao laws. However, the further one cultivated the alchemy Dao laws, the slower the speed of improvement would be. Therefore, Lu Ming had comprehended a new law. The laws of the artifact Dao. The 3 laws derived from the Dao of inscription were the laws of array Dao, the laws of alchemy Dao, and the laws of craftsmanship. Now Lu Ming had comprehended all 3. Lu Ming did not care about the other laws that had reached perfection for the time being. He focused on comprehending the alchemy laws and the equipment laws. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed since Lu Ming returned to the Divine Wilderness continent. In the past 2 years, the Dragon Alliance had been thriving and becoming stronger and stronger. Lu Ming's cultivation had also improved by leaps and bounds. The laws of alchemy had reached 90%, and the laws of craftsmanship had also reached 80%. Lu Ming's combat strength had increased by a huge margin compared to 2 years ago. It's time to go to the East Continent. One haven't seen you for many years. One wonder how senior sister Mulan is doing. On a mountain peak, Lu Ming looked at the Eastern Barren Territory and muttered. In fact, he had wanted to meet Mulan for a long time. However, he had been hesitating. How could he not know Mulan's thoughts? Back then, Mulan had avoided meeting him, and he did not know how to face her, so he had never seen her. However, Mulan had helped him a lot back then. If it weren't for Mulan's recommendation, he wouldn't have been able to enter the Detian Divine Guard, and wouldn't have had his current achievements. Now he had made up his mind. Since he had returned, what was the harm in meeting him? Lu Ming took a step forward. and headed toward the Eastern Barren Territory. Not long after, he arrived at the Mu family's residence. Lu Ming. Brother Lu. He arrived at the Mu family and saw Mu Zheng and Mu Xiaoyuan. The two of them smiled and greeted Lu Ming. After that, he met Mu Lan's father, Mu Tian, and Mu Lan's grandfather, Yen Lan. Senior Yen, Senior Mu. Lu Ming smiled and greeted them. Now the origin chi of the Eastern Barren Territory was extremely rich. Even if they were not very talented, their cultivation had soared a lot, and could not be compared with what they had been in the past. Seeing that Lu Ming did not put on any airs as the leader of the Dragon Alliance, they relaxed and set up a banquet to chat with him. Senior Mu. I wonder if Senior Sister Mulan is here? Lu Ming asked. These words caused Mu Tian, Yen Lan, Mu Zheng, and Mu Xiaoyuan to become silent. Lu Ming had a bad premonition. Senior Sister Mulan, what's wrong with her? Lu Ming asked again. Sigh, that girl is too stubborn. Yen Lan suddenly sighed. Senior, what's going on? Lu Ming asked. The bad premonition in his heart grew stronger. That girl is too headstrong. She has always wanted to catch up to you, and didn't want to fall behind too much. But with her talent, how could she catch up to you? However, the world's metamorphosis this time has given her hope. Lu Ming, you must have been to 9 dragons, right? He asked. Yen Lan sighed and finally asked. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded. Every once in a while, the killing intent in 9 dragons would weaken, and people would be able to enter. Whether it's the original chi or the killing intent, they all come from that passage. Therefore, some people speculate that the other end of the passage must be a supreme holy land for cultivation. Some people even say that whoever can enter the other side of the passage will be able to obtain a supreme opportunity. Yen Lan explained. Don't tell me. Lu Ming thought of something, and his heart skipped a few beats. That's right. That girl went into that passage alone and never came back. And that was before you came back. Yen Lan sighed. Mu Tian and the others also sighed. It was said that there was an unparalleled opportunity on the other side of the passage, but those were just legends and people's conjectures. However, Mulan wanted to seize this opportunity. She wanted to take a gamble. Otherwise, she knew that she would never be able to keep up with Lu Ming. It's been almost 6 years since I left. Mu Tian let out a long sigh. His eyes were filled with longing and worry. Senior Sister Mulan, why do you have to do this? Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, all kinds of memories about Mulan emerged in his mind. Chapter 2185. Terrifying Battle on the Other Side of the Tunnel. Chapter 2185. Terrifying Battle on the Other Side of the Tunnel. Mulan first met Lu Ming in Fiery Wind City. At that time, Lu Ming had just stepped onto the path of cultivation. In the early stages of Lu Ming's cultivation, Mulan had been of great help to him. However, as time passed, Lu Ming's cultivation continued to improve. The gap between the two of them grew wider and wider. Their relationship seemed to be growing further and further apart. Senior Mu Tian, Senior Yen Lan, don't worry. 111 definitely find Senior Sister Mulan and bring her back. Lu Ming said firmly. Lu Ming, what do you want to do? You want to enter that passage too? Don't act rashly. We don't know where that passage leads to and what dangers it has. If you rashly enter, I'm afraid you'll put yourself in danger. Yen Lan advised. Senior, don't worry. I'm confident. Lu Ming said. In fact, he had already wanted to explore that passage. But previously, he had just returned to the Divine Wilderness. He wanted to spend more time with Lu Yuntian and Li Ping, because he did not know where this passageway led to. If he were to go, it would take a long time before he could return. Furthermore, during this period of time, he had let Celestial Emperor's corporeal body absorb the Aurochs, and the energy stored in Celestial Emperor's corporeal body had already exceeded 10%. Now that he could control Celestial Emperor's corporeal body, he was much more confident. Especially now that he heard that Mulan had entered that passageway 6 years ago, Lu Ming was even more determined to go and explore. The few of them chatted for a while more before Lu Ming took his leave. Before he left, Lu Ming left behind a storage ring. Lu Ming stored a lot of cultivation resources. Lu Ming did not enter the passageway immediately. He had to make some arrangements before he left. First, he came to the Divine Ruins continent and returned to the Azure continent through the teleportation array. If he told Cloud Dragon Valley Master about the Divine Wilderness continent, he could let some of the talented geniuses of Dragon God Valley cultivate in the Divine Wilderness. At the same time, the two sides could take care of each other. Lu Ming returned to the Imperial Dragon City and told Xiaowan and the others about the Dragon God Valley incident in the Tsang region. Then, he left the remaining puppets in his hands, 1 at the Martial Emperor realm and 18 at the Emperor-to-be realm, to guard the Imperial Dragon City. After that, he bade farewell to his parents in Qiuyu, saying that he would be leaving for a period of time. After making all the arrangements, Lu Ming came to 9 dragons once again at the passageway. Now there was only 1 dragon vein left. More than half a year ago, another dragon vein rushed into the passage and disappeared. He didn't know when the last dragon vein would rush in. Senior Sister Mulan, please be all right, Lu Ming muttered. He then took a step forward and rushed into the passage. The white mist of the original qi in the passage greatly hindered one's vision. Even Lu Ming could only see a few dozen miles ahead. This passageway was extremely large, at least a few thousand miles wide. Lu Ming found the right direction and flew toward the front of the passage. It was silent all around. Lu Ming had been flying for 3 days, but he had yet to reach the end of the passage. Suddenly, after Lu Ming had flown for a distance, his field of vision suddenly widened. The origin qi here was no longer a mist but a liquid. The liquid origin qi floated around like ribbons. Without the mist of the original qi blocking his vision, Lu Ming could see his surroundings clearly. Lu Ming was shocked at the sight of his surroundings. The tunnel was no longer surrounded by stone walls, but pitch-black darkness. Spatial energy storms constantly surged, but the walls seemed to be a barrier that blocked the spatial energy outside the tunnel. This was a void passage. Lu Ming was shocked. This place was definitely no longer in the Divine Wilderness continent. It was in the chaotic void. Where did this lead to? Lu Ming observed with rapt attention, and then continued to move forward. He seemed to be traveling through the void. In the void passageway, he had only walked 1 mile, but in reality, he had already traveled a long distance. In this way, Lu Ming advanced for another 7 days. Boom, boom. Suddenly, a series of rumbles came from the front, as if there were people fighting. He was almost at the end. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he sped up. Boom, boom. As Lu Ming moved forward, the rumbling sounds in front of him became more and more intense. It was terrifying. Waves of terrifying aura surged from the front, making Lu Ming feel a sense of fear. He did not know how far away they were, but Lu Ming already had such a feeling. What was the cultivation of the people who were fighting? Lu Ming's eyes were a little solemn. However, since he was already here, there was no reason to turn back. No matter what, he had to take a look in front and see what was ahead. Lu Ming continued to move forward. The rumbling sounds in front of him continued. Roar, roar. Suddenly, a dragon's roar came from behind Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. Wasn't the Divine Wilderness continent right behind him? Roar, roar. The roars of a dragon could be heard as a true dragon flew over. It's indeed a dragon vein. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. Behind them was the last dragon vein of 9 dragons. On the head of the dragon vein was a huge divine 9-dragon cauldron, which was flying toward them at an amazing speed. Lu Ming quickly stepped aside, or he would be hit by the dragon vein. The dragon vein whizzed past. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and leaped onto the dragon vein. The dragon vein itself was a giant dragon-shaped mountain range. It was huge and tens of millions of miles long, but now it had shrunk many times. Lu Ming landed on the dragon vein and charged forward with it. Not long after, he saw light ahead. They had reached the exit. But here, an even more shocking explosion came. The dragon vein let out a long roar and rushed out of the cave. The moment he rushed out of the cave, Lu Ming leaped into the dragon vein. He realized that outside the cave was a pitch-black land. Lu Ming landed on the ground and looked into the distance. His pupils dilated rapidly. In the void in front of them, There were 8 huge true dragons. No one knew how big they were, but they stretched across the sky and earth. On top of each of the 8 true dragons, there was a huge cauldron that was emitting a bright light. At this moment, the 9th dragon vein rushed over and also turned into a giant true dragon. Buzz! The divine 9 dragon cauldron trembled. The 9 cauldrons emitted a brilliant light and resonated. In front of the 9 true dragons, there were 2 huge demonic shadows. Their bodies were as tall as the sky, and they were stuck in the clouds. The auras given off by the 2 demonic shadows were earth-shattering. Although they were a great distance away from Lu Ming, he still felt a sense of horror and a sense of foreboding. Lu Ming did not feel this feeling even when he was with Heavenly Emperor Kong Yin. This is the evil god tribe. Lu Ming fixed his gaze on them. Although they were very far away, he could roughly judge from their appearance that the 2 demonic shadows belonged to the evil god tribe. Such a terrifying evil god race. Could this be the heaven realm? Lu Ming had a thought in his mind. Boom! Boom! The 9 giant true dragons converged, and the divine 9 dragon cauldron glowed as it fought the 2 demonic shadows. The scene was earth-shattering. Each strike gave people the feeling that it could destroy the world. Chapter 2186. Chapter 2185. Tunnel collapses. Chapter 2186. Chapter 2185. Tunnel collapses. Roar. An earth-shaking dragon's roar was heard. This earth-shaking dragon's roar actually came from the depths of the sky. Lu Ming looked up and his eyes widened. In the depths of the sky, there was a true dragon. It was impossible to tell how big it was, and its body was circling, covering the sky. This true dragon's aura was even more shocking and difficult to fathom. However, this true dragon had encountered a strong enemy and was fighting with a huge demonic shadow. You won't be able to defend this passage. In the near future, our army will enter the primordial realm in large numbers. A rumbling sound came from the mouth of the demonic shadow in the sky. Don't even think about it. The true dragon let out a long roar and fought the demonic shadow. That aura was too terrifying. Even though they were far apart, Lu Ming still felt great pressure, as if he was about to kneel down. Lu Ming exerted all his strength and gritted his teeth to withstand it. Boom! Boom! The battle was getting more and more intense. You want to stop me with just a drop of blood? Kill! The demonic figure in the sky let out a long roar and attacked wildly, forcing the true dragon to retreat. In the distance, the divine 9 dragon cauldron on the back of the 9 dragon vein was fighting the 2 demonic shadows. It was very intense, a group of losers who tried to stop us. Kill them all! A voice came from the distance. Then, Lu Ming saw another demonic shadow. It was indomitable as it strode over. Its vast and terrifying aura made the entire world tremble. As soon as the figure arrived, he attacked the true dragon in the sky. The true dragon was no match for the 2 demonic shadows and retreated. The direction that they were retreating in was Lu Ming's direction. Lu Ming's expression was ugly as he turned to run. He wanted to rush into the void passageway and escape back to the divine wilderness continent. He didn't expect that he would encounter a great battle the moment he arrived. Every single one of them was terrifying to the extreme. Their combat strength was unbelievably strong, even stronger than Heavenly Emperor Kong Yin. He was definitely a peerless expert. He didn't run. As long as a wisp of chi hit him, he would be dead. Little guy, don't run in that direction. We can't leave this passage open. I'll send you out. At this moment, an aged voice rang in Lu Ming's ears. Then a wave of energy enveloped Lu Ming. Then Lu Ming's body was thrown out. Lu Ming was speechless. He wanted to return to the divine wilderness. Why did he leave him behind? Then Lu Ming saw a shocking scene. The huge true dragon suddenly turned around and slammed its huge claws on the passage. The passage shook violently, then collapsed, cracked, and collapsed. Then the 9 huge divine 9 dragon cauldrons also smashed down on the passage. Boom! 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 The tunnel continued to collapse, and the space exploded. Don't even think about destroying the passageway. The demonic shadows roared and suddenly attacked. Heaven and earth shook and endless gales blew. The terrifying destructive power swept in all directions, and Lu Ming was instantly swept into it. Lu Ming's body shook violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The energy shrouding his body glowed. Two small true dragons swam around continuously, blocking the energy outside. Otherwise, Lu Ming would have turned into ashes in an instant. Lu Ming had a feeling that even if he used the celestial thearch's physical body, it would be useless. He would not be able to block it. Even so, there were still traces of vibrating energy that passed through the energy shield and acted on Lu Ming's body, causing his body to almost explode. Kacha! Lu Ming's bone armor made a cracking sound. Some of the bones were broken, and some of the muscles were torn. Lu Ming was severely injured, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Boom! Roar! The passageway was filled with constant explosions and dragon roars. Terrifying energy swept out in all directions, and space was torn apart like paper before being shattered. Lu Ming was swept away by the void energy storm. His body could not help but move away from this place. Slowly, the violent rumbles could no longer be heard. Lu Ming did not know how far he was sent flying, and he fell heavily on the ground. The energy on his body had also disappeared. Lu Ming spat out another mouthful of blood and started to look around. This was a desolate land with potholes everywhere. There was no vegetation at all. It was deathly silent, and there were no living creatures. Other than the sound of the wind, there was no other sound. Senior Sister Mulan. Lu Ming was very worried. As soon as he arrived here, he encountered such a thing. Several supreme existences were fighting each other. If it wasn't for that energy that enveloped him, he would have already turned into ashes. He wondered what Mulan's situation was like when she came here. Then Lu Ming thought of the few unparalleled existences. It was obvious that those huge demonic shadows belonged to the evil god tribe. The evil god tribe must have discovered the void passageway and wanted to snatch it. However, they were stopped by the 9 dragon veins and the huge true dragon. In the end, the true dragon and the 9 dragon veins destroyed the passage and stopped the other party from going through. It seems like the divine wilderness continent is connected to this place because of that passageway. The yuan qi here is being pumped into the divine wilderness, causing the yuan qi in the divine wilderness to be extremely rich. Lu Ming pondered because he realized that the original energy here was extremely rich. It was even richer than the ancient Moon Holy Land. Moreover, the space was filled with a strong killing intent, which was similar to the killing intent he felt in 9 dragons. From the looks of it, the good days of the divine wilderness continent are over. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. With the passageway destroyed, the two places could not be connected. Without the constant flow of yuan qi into the divine wilderness, the yuan qi in the divine wilderness would quickly dry up and return to its original state. However, it was still 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times, better than the evil god tribe invading the primordial realm through the passage. The moment the evil god race invaded, the divine wilderness would be the first to bear the brunt of their invasion through this passageway. An existence like that from before was too terrifying. A single slap could probably destroy the entire divine wilderness continent, and no one would be able to escape. But now at most the cultivation conditions would be worse. Moreover, the Dragon League had a large number of resources and raw gemstones left behind by Lu Ming. It was enough to cultivate for a long time. Furthermore, the Dragon God Valley of the Tsang Prefecture would send people to the divine wilderness. When the cultivation conditions in the divine wilderness became worse, some people from the Dragon Alliance could also cultivate in the Tsang Prefecture. At least it was much better than before. Where is this place? Is he not in the Taiqing Heavenly Region? Lu Ming thought of another problem. Lu Ming had heard Uncle Kong, Emperor Formless, and the others mention this before. Now out of the 9 heaven domains in the heaven realm, only the Taiqing heaven domain was left. The other 8 heaven domains were all occupied by the alien races. The heaven realm guarded the passage to the Taiqing heavenly region and fought with the alien races for countless years. But the alien races did not invade the Taiqing heavenly region. That was because out of the 9 heaven regions in the heaven realm, only the Taiqing heaven region had a passage that was connected to the primordial realm. However, if this was the Taiqing heavenly region, How did the powerful beings of the foreign tribes get in? It would definitely be blocked by the powerhouses of the heaven realm, right? Therefore, Lu Ming speculated that this was most likely not the Tai Ching heavenly region. Chapter 2187. Chapter 2186, Ancient Battlefield. Chapter 2187. Chapter 2186 Ancient Battlefield. We're in trouble. Lu Ming sighed. If this was not the Tai Ching heavenly region, but another heavenly region, it would be troublesome. The other heavenly regions were completely occupied by the evil god tribe. How was he going to break out of their encirclement, head to the Tai Ching heavenly region, or return to the primordial realm? Lu Ming furrowed his eyebrows deeply. I don't care anymore. 111 Heal my injuries first. Lu Ming shook his head and sat cross-legged, starting to channel his energy to heal his injuries. Now his Bodis recovery speed was amazing. In less than half a day, his injuries were completely healed, and his cultivation was back to its peak. Let's observe the surroundings first. Lu Ming planned to observe and see where he was. Lu Ming randomly chose a direction and flew forward. Looking around, all he could see was a desolate land. Ravines and pits covered the entire land. There were no living creatures or vegetation, only the howling wind. Could this be an ancient battlefield? Looking at the ravines and potholes on the ground, it looked like a battle between experts. I wonder if that passageway has been destroyed. Lu Ming could not help but think of the passageway. Now, he hoped that the passageway had been destroyed. If it was not destroyed, and the alien races rushed in, he would be finished. However, before Lu Ming was swept away, he saw that the entire passage had exploded and shattered. It should be destroyed. Kill. Suddenly, a roar rang out, and a shocking killing intent filled the air. Lu Ming was shocked. All the hair on his body stood on end. The holy power in his body circulated involuntarily. His body turned into a rainbow light, and he retreated rapidly. However, no one chased after him. Kill. The voice then came from the sky. Lu Ming could not help but look in that direction. In the sky, light filled the air, and a figure appeared. This figure was clad in iron armor and holding a spear. His entire body was emitting a shocking killing intent as he roared. This is not real body. Lu Ming was a little stunned. He discovered that this figure was not a physical entity. It was not even made of energy. It was just a shadow. Kill, kill, kill. The figure shouted a few times, and a terrifying killing intent soared into the sky. Then, the light distorted, and the figure disappeared like a phantom. What is this? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. The figure was filled with a terrifying killing intent. It gave off the feeling that it was a terrifying expert. However, it had no hostility towards Lu Ming, and seemed to not have seen him. After a few roars, it disappeared. Could it be that an expert who died in battle back then left behind an undying mark? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. Lu Ming observed for a while, and did not find anything unusual. He then continued to move forward. Buzz! Buzz! This time, Lu Ming had not advanced for long when two rainbow lights flew toward him at high speed. Two humans. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. Lu Ming was overjoyed to see that there were two humans in the two beams of light, and not the evil god tribe. The fact that the human race could come here meant that Lu Ming's previous speculation was wrong. This place was not the eight heaven domain that was occupied by the evil god tribe. The two of them had obviously seen Lu Ming and flew toward him. As they neared, the rainbow light receded, revealing two figures. One of them was a young man in a blue robe. He was tall and strong, and he exuded a powerful aura. There was also a burly middle-aged man in battle armor. The aura he gave off was also extremely powerful. A 3-star Void Emperor and a 4-star Void Emperor. Lu Ming's gaze flickered slightly. That young man was a 3-star Illusionary Emperor. At such a young age, he had already reached this stage. He was definitely a Heaven's Pride figure. The middle-aged man was a 4-star Void Emperor. The two of them sized Lu Ming up carefully. The young man looked surprised. Brother, how should I address you? I've never seen you in the military camp before. The blue-robed youth cupped his fists. Military camp? Lu Ming's mind was racing. He then cupped his fists and said, I'm Lu Ming. am not from the military camp. I was adventuring in a secret place, and was accidentally swept into a void storm, and brought here. Lu Ming told a lie. Oh. The young man and the middle-aged man looked at each other, not knowing whether to believe it or not. Excuse me, may I ask where this place is? Lu Ming asked. You really don't know? The blue-robed man asked. I really don't know. Lu Ming nodded. It seems that Brother Lu really doesn't know. Then let me tell you. This is a battlefield between the Taiqing Heavenly Region and the Hunyuan Heavenly Region, the blue-robed youth said. The battlefield between the Taiqing Heavenly Realm and the Hunyuan Heavenly Realm? He asked. Lu Ming's heart trembled, and a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. Brother Lu, don't you know about the battlefield between the two heaven domains? The blue-robed youth's eyes were filled with even more doubt. I've been cultivating on an island overseas, and adventuring overseas. Although I've heard about the battlefields of the Great War with the alien races, I'm not very clear about them. Please give me some advice. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said politely. So you're from overseas? No wonder. Let me tell you. The blue-robed young man began to explain. As we all know, there are 9 heaven regions in the heaven realm. The 9 heaven regions are like 9 worlds. They are connected to each other by passages. However, the passages between heaven regions are not void passages, but the earth. The heavenly regions are connected by the earth, like a long and wide road. This is the passage between the Hunyuan Heavenly Region and the Taiqing Heavenly Region. Because of the invasion of the alien tribes, the passage between the two heavenly regions has become a battlefield. The blue-robed man explained. Lu Ming understood now. The Hunyuan Heavenly Realm had been occupied by the alien tribes. This was the battlefield between the Taiqing Heavenly Realm and the Hunyuan Heavenly Realm. If the alien tribes wanted to invade the Taiqing Heavenly Realm, they would have to attack from here. No wonder there were alien races and humans here. Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief and felt more at ease. It was better to come to the battlefield between the two heaven domains than to go to the other heaven domains that were already occupied by the alien races. The hell we are in now is even more special. It is the most ancient battlefield. Countless years ago, there was a terrible war here. It was said that those who participated in the war were the most terrifying experts in the world. Chapter 2188. Chapter 2188. Ill Intentions. Chapter 2188. Chapter 2188. Ill Intentions. After the blue-robed youth's explanation, he finally understood the general situation. They were now in the middle of the battlefield of the two heaven regions, an ancient battlefield. In the past, many peerless experts had fought each other. This place was filled with terrifying killing intent, and the immortal marks left by the peerless experts would actively kill the experts who entered this place. Therefore, it was impossible to enter this hell in the past. However, not long ago a change occurred. This area became accessible. Lu Ming could not help but think of the armored figure he had seen before. He held a spear in his hand and was shouting to kill. Could it be that the figure had died in the battle back then and left behind an inextinguishable mark? However, his cultivation was too weak, so the mark did not attack him. To those peerless powerhouses in the world, his cultivation base was indeed too weak. Could the changes in this area be related to the Great Battle? Lu Ming thought about it and felt that it was very likely. However, this area still has the mark of a peerless expert. Those below the true Emperor realm won't be in trouble if they enter, but it's hard to say for those above the true Emperor realm. The higher their cultivation, the more dangerous it is. So this is our chance. The blue-robed young man's eyes flashed with a fiery light. Then, the blue-robed young man looked at Lu Ming with an inexplicable smile at the corner of his mouth. Brother Lu, since you've come here by accident, why don't we travel together? If we encounter any opportunities, we can split them equally. All right. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. He had just arrived in the heaven realm and had many questions to ask. It was best to have a companion. Immediately, the three of them moved forward together. However, the three of them didn't dare to move too fast. No one had entered this ancient battlefield since ancient times. No one knew what dangers there would be. Not long after, the three of them encountered another inextinguishable imprint. This time, it wasn't a human, but a giant bird. Its aura was wild, and its killing intent soared into the sky. The bird's cold gaze swept over the three of them, but it didn't make a move. After a while it disappeared. The three of them heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, their cultivation wasn't strong. If it had been a powerful existence, they would probably have been attacked by these marks. These imprints were definitely extremely powerful when they were alive. Legend had it that this battlefield was one of the most powerful battlefields between the Heaven Realm and the alien race. Those who could participate in the battle were all unimaginably powerful. Therefore, the marks left behind by these powerhouses were also extremely terrifying. He had once entered this place with a great emperor, and was immediately killed by the imprint. Even a heavenly emperor had entered this place and died. From this, one could see how terrifying these imprints were when they were alive. Along the way, Lu Ming asked around and learned a lot of information. The blue-robed young man was called Lan Yun. The middle-aged man was called Lan Songshi. They were outside the battlefield, training in the camp of the Taiqing heavenly region, and fighting with the alien races. This time, many people knew about the changes in the ancient battlefield. In addition to them, many people from the Heaven Realm army camp had also rushed over. After all, the people who had participated in the battle were too powerful. Even though countless years had passed and many things might have rotted, there might still be some treasures left that hadn't rotted. As long as one could obtain one, it would be a great opportunity. It was not surprising that many people came to explore. The alien races would probably send people over as well. The three of them continued to search the area. However, the place was deathly silent and empty. There was nothing there. 2 hours later, suddenly their eyes lit up. In front of him was a messy pile of rocks. In the middle of the rocks was a skeleton. From his posture, he seemed to be sitting on the ground. In his hand was a broken sword. Once a martial arts expert reached the Saint Realm, it would be extremely difficult for his body to corrode. At the Martial Emperor realm, one's physical body was said to be immortal. But everything was relative. It could last for 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 years without rotting. However, what about 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, or even longer? With the passage of time, everything would eventually corrode. The skeleton in front of him might have been a peerless expert when he was alive. The few of them glanced at the finger of this expert, but unfortunately, they didn't see a storage ring. Even storage rings would be corroded over the years, and the items inside could be swept into the void. It was obvious that this being's storage ring had already been corroded. Then, their eyes fell on the broken sword in skeleton's hand. The broken sword was indeed covered in rust, but after such a long time, even the physical body and storage ring of this unparalleled expert had been corroded. However, the broken sword had remained. This was definitely a shocking treasure. Especially Lan Yin and Lan Songshi. Their eyes were shining with a fiery light. "Brother Lu, why don't you go and get the broken sword?" Lan Yin spoke, and looked at Lu Ming with a faint smile. "Oh, go." There was a glint in Lu Ming's eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. This Lan Yin actually asked him to get the broken sword. He definitely did not have good intentions, and wanted to give the broken sword to Lu Ming. He wanted Lu Ming to test the waters. After the death of such a peerless expert, even though countless years had passed, no one knew what kind of danger would befall them. What if the other party had left behind a trace of qi? Or left behind some backup plan? To take his broken sword would be courting death. "Go quickly and bring me the broken sword." Lan Songshi also spoke, his voice cold. Lu Ming sneered. He finally understood why Lan Yun was so kind to answer his question, and even invited him to go with him. His goal was to use him as a test stone. If there was any danger, he would be the first to go. "Brother Lu, hurry up," Lan Yun urged. At the same time, he moved and formed a corner with Lan Songshi to block Lu Ming's retreat. A cold glint flashed across Lu Ming's eyes. "All right, I'll go get it," Lu Ming said with a smile. He stepped forward and walked toward the skeleton. Of course, Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. He was highly focused, and his spiritual senses constantly scanned the skeleton and the broken sword. However, he did not find any abnormalities or any danger. However, Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. He held the Celestial Emperor's sword in his hand. Now that Celestial Emperor's corporeal body had stored more than 10% of its energy, the Celestial Emperor's sword could burst out with a powerful force. If anything went wrong, he could use the Celestial Emperor's sword to block. As he slowly approached the skeleton, he still didn't sense any danger. Lu Ming's spiritual sense was focused on the broken sword. The broken sword was undying, so the most dangerous part was definitely the broken sword. However, from a close distance, he could feel that the broken sword seemed to have lost its spirituality and was no different from a piece of scrap metal. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. A palm condensed from Saint Energy grabbed at the broken sword. Saint Energy? You haven't become a Saint Emperor yet? Seeing the holy power surging in Lu Ming's palm, Lan Yun smiled in disdain. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.